Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome. Oh, I still got these headphones. Oh, wait, I need the headphones. Welcome to Lost Planet the Interwebs. I'm your host who doesn't know what he's doing, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in Minnesota. Yeah, I do need these because we are doing Ronversations by Proxy today. I do apologize that I was close to on time, but I believe just a hair late. I was over on Q's show. I was on Q's show and chatting with Drexel and Soder, and all having a good time. Now I am here. I have been running non-stop today. Non-stop today from the moment I woke up all the way through. But that is where we are. And I hope you guys managed to catch my video I put out earlier today. Well, it was pretty late today. Again, I was running all day long. Did not have a lot of time to get it done earlier in the day, but a video about Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, the wacky odd couple of Minneapolis, I guess is what you could call them. But yeah, the body cam footage was sort of released today in Floyd's death. And by sort of released, I mean they had some computers set up and you could set an appointment for an hour-long slot to go and check out the videos. They had 6-hour slots and 11 computers. So ostensibly 66 people, or maybe they let in a couple people to each one, got to see it. That's it. That's all. So we kind of went through one of the accounts of someone who watched it from the Star Tribune and talked about some new stuff that we kind of learned from that thing. But ultimately, we're left in the corner alone, crying onto a saltine cracker or whatever, as we realize that we don't have access to the video. And so we still, as citizens, don't get to weigh out the actions of the state in that case. And that is really the ultimate shame. The whole idea of public trials is that a lot of people don't like public trials. Let me back this up a minute. A lot of people, Storyfy, I don't know what that is. A lot of people don't like public trials. They don't like the idea that if they are accused of something, that their name would be attached to it, and rightly so, right? Like someone accuses you of some criminal act that you didn't do, your name is out there and attached to it. That's a terrifying and stressful thing for a lot of people. That makes sense. Except it's not supposed to be that way, because we're not supposed to be a country of assholes. We're supposed to be a country that says that the government is the asshole. This is important. So we're supposed to say, okay, so the guy's accused of something. He's innocent of that accusation until the government proves its case. But the government hasn't done that yet. So we're supposed to say that the accusation doesn't matter. The conviction is what's supposed to matter. But of course, we live in 2020 where accusations are all that matters to most people. And that is a shame. So because of that trash, we have these ideas that public trials need to be less accessible rather than more. But the reason things were set up to be public trials is simple. If somebody was getting railroaded by either the government or another person, the public is supposed to know. The public is supposed to know this. And this case, the Vic case, is such a freaking fantastic example of this, right? This is a fantastic example of what's going on. Now, I've talked a lot and I mentioned, and you guys know this, it's really rare to see so much of a civil case, right? As you've seen at Vic's here, because on this channel, so much of it has come out because depositions came out and discovery stuff came out through this channel. You guys were able to see it. I was able to see it. You get to participate as a spectator in the lawsuit in a way that you don't get to normally. But this is the way it's supposed to be. Because if something seems unfair, if a party seems to be acting inappropriately, we're all supposed to know. Because we're supposed to go and stand behind the person who's getting screwed and be like, no, wait a minute. This isn't fair. I mean, the judgment goes this way or that way, but this wasn't right. This wasn't fair. These people did this thing, or they withheld that, or they lied here, and we can see it. And then that's the separate aspect, especially civil lawsuits. Civil lawsuits are about recovering from damage caused to you. And that recovery tends to be some sort of monetary compensation because that's what the courts can do. But the reputational aspect of it, the public image aspect of it, is not the court's job. But it should be incumbent upon the courts to keep everything open. That way, let's say in the George Floyd case, we find out that Derek Chauvin is getting railroaded. Maybe that ends up happening. And the public wants to know, or should want to know, that he's getting railroaded. Or let's go the other way. Let's say the state is covering up for their police officers and then having exposed all of the documents that were redacted and retracted and kept away from the public or destroyed. Someone comes out and exposes that. That's valuable because now we see, okay, the state is protecting its own interests rather than the people. And that's not what the state is for. The state is there to protect the people's interests. So this whole thing where getting back to Chauvin and the limited release, I find it to be an affront. An absolute affront to the idea of justice and transparency in an honest system, and especially in a case where the state kills its citizen. The state employed Derek Chauvin to do a job which put him directly opposed to a citizen of the state. When a citizen of the state is killed by the state or by the state agent, we need to have more transparency, not less. And so I think it's a damn disgrace that we don't have access to those videos yet, and I'm hoping that very soon we will. Am I really low here? Okay, I'll this should be better. I've been messing with the microphone gain and stuff like that, so. Anyway, so I find that to be abysmal, but some people did do a pretty thorough breakdown of what they saw in the video. And so using that, I did a video today to talk about a couple new things we learned. Please go check it out. By the way, you guys watching and liking and sharing those short videos is such an amazing help to me and an amazing help to the channel. And I really do appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. Okay. But yes. And I think, and again, I think it's kind of now bringing that back to Vic's situation. I think the Vic case is a phenomenal illustration of the power of transparency. Because if it were up to Monica and Ron, right? If it were up to Monica and Ron, you still wouldn't know the names, hell, even of the people in their affidavits. You wouldn't know the names of the convention owners. You wouldn't be able to go back. We wouldn't know that LJ Montello, the local psycho, we wouldn't know that that was one of their affidavits. We wouldn't be able to suss out the fact that she wasn't even there the year she claimed to have personal knowledge of this stuff. And unfortunately, the judge may never find out, but we'll always know. And anyone who looks into it will always know. They'll know that LJ Montello's a liar and also hideous. They'll know that Monica and Ron withheld the Kamea text messages, and allegedly, because of these interviews, we found out that Ron may have withheld a Kamea phone call that's recorded as well. That's a violation of the discovery. And so whether or not the court deals with that is one question. But now anybody who looks at it can go, these guys are disingenuous. They're cowards, they're liars, they're nasty people, and when confronted with a system of purported fairness, they didn't comply. So that's a valuable thing. That's a valuable thing for them to do. And it's pretty, it's interesting. It's still frustrating, but it is illustrative of the system we're supposed to have. We're supposed to have a system where people are skeptical of government. They're skeptical of all claims going either way. And then they get to see things. And that system that allows you to see what's going on is what's important. It's harder and harder to see things these days, despite the fact that we have more and more access to it. It's weird. Anyway, well, we are going to do some Ronversations by Proxy tonight. We are on part 5 of this interview, and we'll be gunning to get down to hopefully having either finishing it or having only a part 6 left to do. We're going to get there as quickly as possible. So, we're going to jump into that. Oh, excuse me. In just a second. First, I have a little bit of an announcement that came out today on Twitter. It's not me. It's not my announcement. It is an announcement that is kind of interesting. I did retweet this, so you guys might have already seen it, but Vic is going to a convention this weekend, North Florida or South Georgia. This is Hyatt Regency Jacksonville. So Jacksonville, Florida, I'm guessing, or is it Jacksonville, Georgia? Jacksonville, Florida? Is that the one up north? I don't know where anything is. Yeah, that's up north. That's right by Georgia or whatever. Good job, Jacksonville. So you can go to Jacksonville, Florida, and see Vic Mignogna this weekend at it's a Trek Con, I guess. Or wait, Collective Con. I let Collective Con know I'd be in town for a Star Trek event at our studio on Sunday. They're very gracious, but social distancing won't let them add more guests, so I got a spot very nearby on Saturday. Come say hi. Okay, so it's not at the con, not at Collective Con, but it'll be right by it. So come say hi. The Hyatt Regency in Jacksonville, Florida. If you are able to go and want to see Vic, this might be one of the only chances this year because everything is getting shut down. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So you can check that out there. But I wanted to go ahead and announce that and let people know that that is a thing that's going on. You can also watch the virtual TrekCon on Sunday, broadcast live on Facebook. I don't know where on Facebook that is, but if you are a fan of Vic on Facebook or something, I guess it would be there. I don't know. But anyway, you guys can go check that out. Unfortunately, I will not be able to get down to Florida this weekend. I have guests coming to my house this weekend. One of those guests is Drexel. He will be here Friday. So Drexel will likely be on the show on Friday to hang out with me, talk about stuff. We'll have a fun show then. You guys can come hang out with us as well. I'm not exactly sure what topics we'll be covering, but it doesn't really matter what I announce, because with Drexel, our conversations tend to go where they go rather than where we plan. So do come join us on Friday's live stream for that. Yes, Toy Bounty Hunters, Vic is also going to be at UltraCon in August, which is the last weekend in August, and UltraCon is in Miami, Florida. I am trying to work out if I can go or not. I would love to visit, but some things in my own schedule make that a little bit complicated. So we'll see. I will announce as soon as I do know that, if I'm able to go. So, oh boy, what else do we have? What else do we have going on? I don't know if there's any more announcements or things. Oh, let me just tell you, my goal was to have the knives up for raffle yesterday. That fell through because yesterday became an abject disaster in my life. And it also involved me having to do taxes, which is great. And if you were on my Discord, you got to sit there with me for hours going through the whole taxes thing. That was wonderful, and I never want to do it again. So, but that's the way it goes every year, right? So that was yesterday. I did not get the raffle done today because outside of doing live chat Wednesday with my Discord that I do every Wednesday, I have not been sitting down for the entire day until just now. So I will be putting together that raffle tomorrow. It is on my priority list, and we will be doing it. We'll be doing it through a raffle website. I think I've got it locked down on the correct one. And again, I want to make sure that when people are buying the raffle tickets, that there isn't some sort of expense that they need to pay to do it, that I will be shouldering as much as the expense personally as I can. And none of the proceeds will go to me, and none of my costs in the raffle will be compensated either, if that makes sense. So if I'm able to take off processing fees or whatever from the charges, I will not be compensated out of the ultimate total. I will be paying that personally, and the full amount raised by the raffle will be put into the GoFundMe. So that is the idea. Again, I don't, I'm not going to get any benefit out of this, and that's not the idea. The idea is to put these cool knives up for auction or up for a raffle, have people participate, and have that participation reflect positively on the GoFundMe. So there you go. Release your returns. People have a right to know the grift. God, no. It was awful. I haven't even finished. I actually, I filed for an extension on my tax returns because there's a lot more that I have to compile and go through. But to file a tax extension, you need to provide a reasonable estimate. And so I did a reasonable estimate, and I paid a big chunk of it. And then I went upstairs and cried for 12 straight hours. Any reason you waited till the last day to do your taxes, talking about being late and gay? I wasn't late. I was on time. And I filed them at 6 in the morning on the deadline date. Okay. We have a chat, a super chat, or well, a justice chat that came in before the show that I want to cover. Zara BP, before that, Zara BP says, I imagine it's hell. It is, because the nature of income coming from all the different sources like YouTube and Patreon and Streamlabs and all that stuff, which is great. It just adds layers of accounting for everything. And it also adds different places to go find that income and then reconcile it with any expenses, and then finding the business expenses and proving all that out it's just a nightmare. It's fun though. And by fun, I mean, take a metal file and run it across your teeth. It's the same thing. But yeah, I would much prefer taxes that are, you know, low, flat, and fair. Flat and fair being same word. The amount we could reduce taxes overall, but have everybody contributing to society, as long as, and also having them contribute in a way that's not very expensive. We could significantly reduce the tax rates by going ahead and just applying it flatly to everybody. So we should do that. We should do that. What's it like doing taxes on like 7 different revenue streams? Taxing. I should hire someone to do it, but I'm stubborn that way. Rekieta says turn signal versus indicator. I go with turn signal. Yeah, that's mine. Well, I just call it a blinker, or also known as that thing I never use. Okay. So the Dream Dominion sent this before the show. This is a justice chat. It says, looking forward to you joining us in using Subscribestar. Here's to hoping they get to approving you before next month. Also, go to bitshoot.gameplayersdream.com for Let's Plays of great games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Indivisible. Indivisible starts tomorrow. So that's bitshoot.gameplayersdream.com. Thank you very much for that justice chat, the Dream Dominion. I'm hoping Subscribestar reviews my profile soon as well. I have sent them expedite requests via email and expedite requests via Twitter, and I've gotten no response on either. I can only assume it's because I have said China number 4 too many times, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully they get around to approving me, because I really would like to give people a Patreon alternative option. Otherwise, I might have to just create my own thing, which I think actually that Snaj, one of my Discord admins, has started, you know, creating that system. So that might work as well. We'll get something going. And finally, right before we get started, did you guys see the Twitter disaster today? Did you see the Twitter disaster? Oh my God, it's somebody hacked a bunch of rich people Twitters and told the world that they would double the Bitcoin that got sent to them. It'd send back double. If they sent 1,000, they get $2,000. And then apparently they scammed people out of $100,000, which that's not funny. Like, I don't like that people got scammed out of $100,000, but I do really enjoy the fact that the people who got hacked are people like Joe Biden, are people like Obama, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Mr. Beast got hacked. The funny thing is, Mr. Beast, everybody probably thought that Mr. Beast was actually doing it, because I'm pretty sure his entire YouTube channel is just I'll give you money. He's just an abrogation channel. I think an arbitrage channel. He's just a investment arbitrage channel, which is a fascinating model. It's a fascinating model. Do you guys know how Mr. Beast operates? Basically, like, imagine I figure out with, you know, some actuarial endeavors that I will make $10,000 a video because it's going to get like 6 million views, like Mr. Beast does. And then what I do is I offer one person in the video's comments or whatever 1,000 of those dollars. I've just made 9 grand by and swarmed people to the show. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's a good job. Would I have Mr. Beast on? Yeah, I'd love to I'd love to pick his brain on how he got that. You wouldn't win anything though if you came on the show. He would not be allowed to give people money on the show. I don't think that that's a thing. It sounds a bit Ponzi-ish. It is. I mean, it is. But he's not asking people to directly contribute. He's just socializing the ad revenue. He's just built a model that gets him so much ad revenue that it more than compensates what he's paying out. Obviously, he's done that because otherwise he wouldn't keep doing it. It would be a losing proposition. But no, it's really fascinating. And I don't know how many people could actually pull it off effectively because there's only so much room in the market for that type of stuff. It's like a lottery. It maybe should even be illegal. It's great. All right. Felipe Mube says, the Twitter hack just reflects that the people who got hacked are as stupid as regular people regarding account security. Hashtag 2-step authentication for the win. Oh, I forgot. I left out the best part of the Twitter hack. Hold on. We need a bigger face for this. They shut down all the blue checks. They had to pause tweeting from all the blue checks in the world. All of them. Can you imagine what happened when those people found out that they couldn't tweet? The outcry of spurgacious reeing was deafening. And the best part is, none of us could hear it. They had no way to talk. None of them. None of them could do anything, but you could hear in your bones. You could hear them. Just trying to get the phone. Just tweet. Just post a message. Just post a damn message. Oh my God. Oh, can you imagine? Duchette was technologically prevented from his own addiction. Somebody, I mean, find all the meth dealers in North Carolina and make sure he hasn't stolen their phone and co-opted their Twitter account. I can't imagine how hard that must have been for him. Oh, it was great. It was great. It needs to happen every day, all the time, forever. I would be the bane of Twitter, right? You're gone. Your tyranny has lasted too long. You are guilty. Guilty of crimes against the public. That would be, oh God. I would purge all of them. All the time. If only. To the hackers, you're scumbags for stealing people's money, but also my hat's off to you for ruining the days of people like Joe Biden, of Greg Doucette, Jamie Markey, Monica Rial. Also, as a side note, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but DC Douglas is getting Me Too'd, apparently, and not just for his bathroom exploits, but for being an all-around creep. The reckoning is coming to you voice actors. The reckoning is coming. You thought it would stop, and you tried to get on that simp train. I laugh at all of you. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, be careful if you're going to do that to Sabbath. You don't want to end up in a river. Did I hear something about J. Michael Tatum? Something happened to J. Michael Tatum? Oh, if I was Bane, Batman couldn't stop me, Drifter. Batman's a chump. Someone mentioned something about J. Michael Tatum, but I don't know what that's about. Oh. Anyway, okay, Sakaki Onsai says, RE Twitter, the Bitcoin scam was a cover. Apparently, white hats have released screenshots that show that Twitter does do shadow banning and other things. In short, Jack Dorsey lied under oath to Congress. Smoking! Haha. Yeah, well, I mean, I think we all knew that they were lying to Congress. I mean, there are websites that you can check if you're shadow banned. You can check accounts and see whether they're shadow banned or not. Of course, they do shadow banning. That was not a surprise to anybody. But someone mentioned that. Oh, I think it was. I don't remember who it was. They mentioned that they've got this. They'll have the private messages, right? If they took over the high-level Twitter people, then they've got the DMs. Release the DMs. That's terrifying. Oof. Release the DMs. That'd be very embarrassing. I mean, you know they're not going to come out, but if they did, can you imagine what these people say in DMs? All right. Lunar says, I've learned since my RuneScape days over a decade ago that the old give coin and I'll double it scam, quite frankly, I find it hilarious that so many people fell for it, but I'm also an assailed. So, le shrug. Yeah, don't ever give someone money on the promise that they'll give you more back unless you're a bank. There you go. There you go. All right. So we have Cress Holmes and Mr. Hop on the Ron interview on the Knuckleheads podcast. This is Knuckleheads number 9. This is back on June 6th. This takes me a long time to go through these. Ron got really quiet on all channels for a while, and then he couldn't take it anymore when they filed their reply, and then he kind of quieted down, and then I did the live stream about the reply on Monday, and Ron really piped up on the Kiwi farms because Ron is an unstable little leprechaun, and he doesn't know what to do or how to handle stress. And Ron, just get a stress ball, get a butt plug or something to fix this. You got to figure out how to properly channel your frustrations. And I don't know what you need, buddy, but it is something. It is something that you can just go and furiously vent on yourself or on something else. Preferably not a spouse or anything. Don't hit any more people, Ron, you weird, violent little mongrel. Don't do that. Go hit something inanimate. Preferably something made to be hit. Do that. But you need to figure out how to channel this stuff because you are a clock. And it's really embarrassing that you haven't figured out how this works and how to get a grip on yourself. But he went back to flipping out on the farms on Monday after my show, and it's great. He's very well adjusted. So that's what's been going on. We're gonna go ahead and resume. Oh, excuse me. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So tired. We're gonna resume this thing right now. 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 9 seconds. So there's officially 2 hours left of the video, but I don't know that Ron stays for the whole thing. All right, here we go. If and say what if let Ron. Oh damn it. It was muted. I went back. Damn it. Oh, so now you guys have no context for my thing. Oh, God. All right. Raccoona says Ron voice, but spouses are made to be hit, Nikki. Look how much padding she has. Okay. We're going back. Here we go.
Because this should be over a lot sooner, but it didn't. And
this should be over a lot sooner, but it didn't. Some people think they don't be like it is, but it do.
The fact that, like, okay, so just look at this. Say, like, we take emotion out of it. Say, if when things happen here, say it doesn't, say nothing comes back on appeals, it's affirmed on the decision, right? Then now, if he goes to the Supreme Court, there's more fees, and all this has been accruing interest at 5% per year.
There might not be more fees. They're very confident in the contingent fee award, but I think there's a very good argument. And frankly, they don't have to raise this argument on appeal. I think they maybe should have, but they don't have to raise this argument on appeal. They can raise it on collection. That the contingent fees are bullshit. Because the contingent fees were issued after Vic had already filed his notice of appeal. And so it's hard for the court to impose a contingent fee based on something that already happened. Contingent means based upon this future event. You know, the fees are contingent upon Vic filing a notice of appeal. But Vic had already filed a notice of appeal, one which the court was aware of and had even had discussions about in its courtroom prior to this ruling. So for the court to enter a judgment after something has happened that is contingent upon another event, the logical consistency would state that it's contingent upon a future event. And remember, Ron's team and all of Law Twitter, right all the time, were so convinced that this appeal was going to be thrown out as premature because they didn't read the rules. They were so convinced that it was premature and would be thrown out that they never even bothered to get it clarified by the judge. So I think that Vic's got a pretty damn good argument that no contingent fees apply. And so here's how that could go. This is what could happen. I'm not saying this is what will happen, but this is how this hypothetically could go down. Let's say every judgment is affirmed on appeal. Everything's set. Okay. Vic loses completely. Now they go, yeah, we've got a judgment to collect. They lodge their judgment in the court, and then they go for their collection procedures, and they try to collect the amount that they were awarded plus their contingent fees. Now they have to have a hearing on those contingent fees, potentially, if Vic's team wants to raise it. And they say, no. They don't get to have contingent fees because that order issued by the court cannot be binding. Actually, they just say, no, the order does not give them contingent fees. And they say, well, yes, it does. Here's this. It says, no. He did not, after this order, file a notice of appeal. He didn't do it. So now they have to go before a judge and argue that somehow an ex post facto judgment is going to apply to something he had already done. And then if they win that, that can be appealed. And then you've got tons more fees, and you've got years of more litigation. It's, they really should have gotten Judge Chupp to clear this up. They really should have, but they didn't. And it was probably because they were so confident that that appeal was going to get tossed out and he'd have to refile. Because if that had happened, right, if the appeals court had tossed out Vic's appeal and Vic had to file a new notice of appeal following the judgment, well, then he would have filed a notice of appeal and it would have been in accordance with the ruling. But he didn't do that. He thinks they're going to get contingent fees. If Vic were my client, those contingent fees would be light years away. Light years away from. Alex says, wouldn't be a Nick stream without wild boomerisms. Keep up the honest yet not technologically perfect work. As long as it's honest. As long as it's honest. Okay.
So then he goes to Supreme Court, right? And then what happens if he loses there? Is that fair to him when this whole entire time, if you go back to the beginning of, did this law...
If he goes to the Supreme Court and loses, is that fair to him? Yes! Like, don't take this the wrong way. Is it overall just? Is it wonderful? No, of course not. If Vic loses, I'll be very frustrated. But there's nothing I can do to change the outcome of this case. So it's just either going to happen or it's not going to happen. That's where that is. But you can't say that someone goes through the whole process up to the Supreme Court and loses and that's not fair. You may not like it, but it's objectively fair. They got every opportunity to make the case. And if they couldn't make the case, well, then they couldn't make the case. How's that fair? That's how it's fair. You get your say.
Lawsuit makes sense to file when you should have gotten a ton of work before the lawsuit was filed. And if you couldn't, have a real hard conversation with your client. Be like, look, client, I'm not saying I don't know what happened or didn't happen.
Ron doesn't have any idea how lawyering works. Still, after all this, after all the money he's allegedly paid to his lawyers, he still has no idea how lawyering works. It's beautiful.
But if I'm in that position and I need X...
You never would be. You're not a lawyer, and you would make a terrible one.
X, Y, and Z to prove my case, and I can't get that.
Then you go to discovery to prove your case, Ron. That's what discovery is for, and there are no pre-trial methods that would work for the information that they needed. And you don't understand this because you're an idiot. And I don't know how to say it nicely. You just don't get it. There is no way, for example, that Vic could have forced you to give him the Kamea context. He was only able to get that by raising a lawsuit and then allegedly threatening or informing Chris Latenight that he might be on the hook for a breach of contract lawsuit. You know, and then Latenight turns over those text messages, the ones you withheld. Again, think about what this asshole is saying. He is saying that, well, Ty should have gone to these people and gotten all of the information because they would have just given it to him. But you, under court order, didn't. And without bringing the suit, Vic doesn't even get the conversation with Latenight. Do you get that? No, of course you don't get that. It's not, there's a practical reality to law. And it's the fact that there's another person on the end of everything who can just say, nah. And the complicating factor in all of this is that the overwhelming majority of information outside of the defendants that were picked lies outside of the state of Texas and therefore far outside the jurisdiction of Tarrant County. Imagine this. Imagine this, if you will. Ron's best legal team ever couldn't even get Judge Chupp to bring in Chris Slatosh, a guy 20 miles away or whatever, or who runs a con in just outside of Dallas. They couldn't get the judge to bring the guy in Texas who runs a convention just outside of Dallas to Fort Worth. And Ron is expecting that Ty, without a judge, could go ahead and get all of these conventions and IO9 and Anime News Network and Mars Girl and Jesse Pride Whore and all of these people to just give up all of the information that potentially implicates them in unlawful dealings. Yeah, it's that simple. You just ask and they'll just, oh yeah, here you go. Here's all our business records. It doesn't work that way. It was never going to work that way. And anybody who says it does work that way, frankly, needs I don't know, needs a snorkel to go to the bathroom. But Ron doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand that. So he's just like, well, somebody said on law Twitter, they said you can do pretrial discovery. But it doesn't just work. The court has to have jurisdiction over the discovery target. And the discovery target has to not resist it at all.
And I choose to sue anyway, and then I get multiplied fees on multiplied fees and on multiplied. Is that fair?
What multiplied fees? What do you... the fees were not multiplied. Actually, no, that's incorrect. Your fees, Ron, were multiplied by about 1/3.
That's something that Vic's going to have to decide. It's not really for up to us or anybody else to tell him what to do. And I know Ken wanted to say something.
Right, Ken.
Yeah, so go ahead, Ken.
So I want to get back to where we were before on how we can move forward from this. Why not take... there's a few things that I think are obstacles to that. You have this issue with you and Nick.
Yeah.
You have this issue with...
I get it, Ken, but what issue with me and Ron? There is no such thing as me and Ron. That's not an issue. If Ron never talks to me again, Ron will never have an issue with me again. Now, I'm going to talk about Ron whenever he comes up in these weird things, if it can be entertaining, of course, or informative, of course. That's just me. But the amazing beauty of it is, Ron never has to engage that content. Ever. He doesn't have to, in any way, ever address the things that I say about him. You guys, I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of people who say a lot of things about me on a daily basis. And I never engage some of that content, some of those people. I don't even hear it most of the time. And that's fine. There is no issue between me and that person because that person will say what they say and I will do what I do. And that's it. Ron can do this. Except Ron can't do this.
Between you guys and a large chunk of the community, and you guys have this issue between you and Vic. And I think at least two of those can be worked on and have a huge impact on this whole thing. And, ones that don't involve the lawsuit. So obviously you really can't do much with Vic right now. But I think
that's not true, Ken. Ron actually could do a lot with Vic right now. Ron's lawyers and Vic's lawyers could get together and negotiate settlement at any time. They could drop the appeal. They could drop one person out of the appeal. The appeals court is happy to let the issue go. If the people are able to resolve their stuff, it moots the issue and it's done. The appeals court is More than happy for that. And they've been able to do this the entire time. The entire time. From 2 months before the lawsuit up until literally this moment, they have been able to do something. And despite all of Ron's protestations and bullshittery, they have chosen to do nothing of the sort. Not even talk about it. Because Ron is a liar. And I cannot say it enough. Ron Toye is a liar. Because if he wanted to settle this at any point, he has had the ability, the means, opportunity, and the motive to do it. And he has chosen not to. He could even settle it and leave Monica out of the settlement. That's how flexible this system is. Ron could do just about anything with Vic in regards to resolving this conflict. And hell, maybe Ron's statements didn't do the most damage. Maybe Vic would agree to that. I don't know. I have no idea. Like, let's say Vic's like, no, Monica and Marky, their statements did the most, or Funimations did the most, or whatever. And Ron, you're just a weirdo with a fetish. I don't like you, go away. All you have to do is, delete your Twitter in your life or whatever. And then Ron could go do that and then solve it. I don't know if that's what Vic would want. I genuinely have no idea. But in theory, Ron could have done that. To my knowledge, not only did they obviously not do that, they never even entertained the idea of settling. Mithrin Emrys says, Ron's problem is one of two things. Either one, his legal team lied to him, or two, he hears only what he wants to hear and doesn't understand what he hears. Based on his behavior, I'm leaning toward two. I am mostly leaning towards two as well, but I think there's a little bit of one in there. I genuinely think that Ron's lawyers, and this is Ron's fault, don't want to talk to him. Because, would you?
You could.
I'll ask for
so if he dropped his stuff right now, would you guys not ask for your fees?
I can't.
That's just a question. You don't have to.
Pretend this isn't our lawsuit. Let's do it that way. Pretend it's not our lawsuit. Pretend it's like
a hypothetical lawsuit.
If Joe Schmo could make that decision today, this was never about money for Joe Schmo. Absolutely, we would not. Joe Schmo would not. It would be cool. Let's go.
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. I got to go back. I couldn't hear it because he just can't have a mic that works. But
on this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And, ones that don't involve the lawsuit. So obviously you really can't do much with Vic right now. But I think you could.
I'll ask for
so if he dropped his stuff right now, would you guys not ask for your fees?
I can't.
That's just a question. You don't have to.
Pretend this isn't our lawsuit. Let's do it that way. Pretend it's not our lawsuit. Pretend it's like
a hypothetical lawsuit.
If Joe Schmo could make that decision today, this was never about money for Joe Schmo. Absolutely, we would not.
No, he's a liar here because he qualified that in it was never about money for Joe Schmo, right? Ron has drawn the distinction about Vic asking for $1 to $5 million over and over again. So Ron has already built in a weasel way out of this because Ron will say, well, but Vic, it was all about the money, which I don't think it really was all about the money for Vic. And I think he testified under oath that it wasn't about the money so much as it was about restoring his reputation and going, having the people who lied exposed as liars. Now, money is how the court repairs damages. And if you go into a courtroom and say, I don't want any money, You have to have some other relief that the court can provide. And in defamation with a damaged reputation, there just isn't any other than silencing your opposition, right? That would be a remedy that theoretically the court could provide, except as we know, Ron has been particularly sensitive to the idea that this lawsuit was a means to silence him and Monica. Even though no one has asked for them to be silent, none of that has occurred. There's been no injunction request or gag order requests about this. They have never asked the court to silence these people in light of ongoing defamatory statements from both of them. They have never once asked the court to do it. But that's really the only other remedy the court has in a defamation action. The court can't just do something. The court is not there to say whether something was right or wrong. And if you go and find lawsuits where they ask for that, the courts will say, our job is not to determine right and wrong. Our job is to bring justice. And the way you bring justice is the court has to be able to compensate the loss of one party from the expenses of another party that caused them damage. You repair the damage in some way. So Ron is being disingenuous here because, and also an idiot, because there is no way for him to get what he wants. Well, he made it all about money, is what he said earlier. Now he's saying, well, if it wasn't all about money, well, then yeah, we wouldn't ask for our fees. Absolutely, they would ask for the fees. Absolutely, this is an obvious and bad lie.
Joe Schmo would not. It would be cool. Let's go.
So it would be kind of game over. Everyone takes their punches and payments, and we all go home with what we have left, kind of thing.
Yeah, Joe Schmo would be fine with that, I'm sure. If it was just, hey, let's end this over, let's move on with our lives, and let's continue down the path. Maybe Joe Schmo would be 100%. Maybe that was an option before, and who knows what happened.
Oh, this motherfucker is gonna lie about it? He's gonna lie about it? Oh, that's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we go back to
There's a lot of fun information that comes out when all this is over based on what I can say that's going to shock you about that conversation you just asked me. But unfortunately, I have to be quiet, and they're going to, but I've had a glass or two of this, so we'll see.
Well, I
one or two glasses and you're suddenly the loose lips Laura? Shut up. God, you're such a beta.
think there's a way for you to really fix some things here.
Yeah.
And I have a question for you, and you can, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Are you in a position, or do you think you can be in a position to forgive Nick?
If Nick called me today, I would have a conversation with Nick, and all I'd want him to do is apologize for how he spoke about Monica. He can talk about me all he wants, but I feel so bad on the insults he said about her. That woman is one of the most genuine and loving human beings on the planet. I don't like
False.
How he spoke about her. Everybody else, I don't give a shit about. He can insult everyone on the planet. If he told me I'm sorry for saying mean things about Monica, cool, water under the bridge. I think he's funny, and it sucks because I want to hate the guy, but he's fucking funny, god damn it, and it's annoying.
You can forgive him without needing that apology, though. You don't have to.
Yeah, just a pro-life tip, guys. If you wait on the impetus of someone else's actions for forgiveness, one, you're hurting yourself. You're wasting your own time. You're wasting your own energy, and you're causing yourself pain that is unnecessary. If you need someone to initiate the thing for forgiveness, then you're not actually forgiving them. You're demanding a transaction. All right? Well, I'd forgive him if he did this. What let me stop you. That's not forgiveness. That's an exchange. And I know it's hard to distinguish because a lot of times we want to forgive people after they do something, after they apologize, after whatever. And I am telling you from a personal perspective, you have to forgive people on your own without their impetus, without their exchange, without their action. If you rely on that, you might be stuck with a well of anger when some jerk just would never do that. And it's silly of Ron to want me to give him something to do what will only benefit him, and that would be forgive me. Like, I forgive Ron. I forgive Ron all of the times he insulted me, all the times he lies. I think they're annoying and they're frustrating, but I forgive him. At the end of the day, like, I'm not going to sit here and dwell on it and be mad about it. Ron has said plenty of rude and hurtful things about me, and that's fine. I don't, whatever. But I'm not gonna. You know what, Ron? You need to apologize to me first, and then I will forgive you.
Have that to forgive him.
That's true.
Oh, good job, Ken.
That comes back to this.
I'd like it though, thank you, Ken.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's not something that would be.
Can I get a cherry on top?
You can. It's possible, but if you come back to the basis of it, forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about you. It's about you taking control back. And
you're right.
And
Ken, that was rude.
There's this desire for control of others.
Yeah.
I think you can have the desire for control of yourself and being able to say, I know you said horrible shit about me and about my fiance and about other people in my lives, but it's okay. I forgive you for that, and I'm moving on from that, and I'm not going to let that hit me. Yeah. You know, does it suck getting hit with a bunch of insults and jokes? Yeah, it can definitely get to you. But again, it comes back to, how do we figure that out? One thing I dealt with in middle and high school was bullying. I had so many different nicknames. And one of the things I learned to do was I had so many different nicknames.
So many different nicknames. Oh, okay. Here's the thing. Wait, I want to go back just a second here.
Hit with a bunch of insults and jokes. Yeah, it can definitely get to you. But again, it comes back to, how do we figure that out? One thing I dealt with in middle and high school was bullying. I had so many different nicknames. And one of the things I learned to do was move past that. And that was extremely hard. I got to the point where when someone would insult me or my family, I would insult my family with them. Like if someone said, your mom's a whore, I'd be like, oh, I know that for a fact. I saw her down on the corner last night.
Yeah.
And it took away that power from them and it gave it back to me.
I'm sorry. If Ken Hannibal Lecter's Ron into calling Monica fat, I quit. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'll send Ken the biggest box of chocolates he's ever gotten in his life. That would be the funniest thing. Yeah, I'll insult her with him.
I had control of how I felt. You can do the same thing. You don't have to let, if you look at it as a zero-sum game,
right?
The more you desire that apology, the more control Nick would have over.
Chris, seriously, get a non-mechanical keyboard. Oh, jeez.
Over you, whereas,
why do I have any control over Ron at all? I have nothing. No leverage over him. He doesn't owe me money. I can't go see him. I mean, in theory I could, but the practicality of it is ridiculous. I have no ability inherent to control this guy at all. Nothing. Why would you let me have anything? Why? Why do it? There's no benefit to him. There's none. It's not like he's you know, like some internet slap fights or whatever are great because one person can do it, and then they, if they're on YouTube or whatever, they're building an audience by fighting with this guy, and then he fights back, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is great! I want to see these two morons drool all over each other and cuddle or whatever. I want to see that, and so I'm going to subscribe to both of them, and I'm going to make fun of the one I don't like, or the other one's going to get a good shot in." You can, like, there's a benefit to both of those parties, and you see a lot of YouTube drama channels built around that idea, right? Keemstar and H3H3 had an exchange back and forth, and whatever it ended up doing to both of them, ultimately a lot of people were talking about both of these internet weirdos. A lot of people were. And the people who left either of those platforms probably weren't really caring about those platforms in the first place. And so ultimately they're getting benefits out of this. That beef back and forth is helpful. I have a YouTube channel. It benefits me to have some sort of conversation about anything. And if that conversation involves another person, then it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And there are lots of things I could try. Like I could try and do those internet beefs. I really don't like them. I find them to be cancer. But no, I talk about Ron because it's funny. Not because Ron responding to me would be particularly beneficial in the long run. It's not going to really grow my channel because no one knows who Ron is. That's not going to be helpful. But at least I get to generate content. Ron gets nothing out of it. He gets no benefit, nothing tangible. He only gets some sort of smug self-satisfaction. And that is a terrible reason to do something like this. Very weird.
You know, and I don't like, it's called like a parent-child thing.
Oh,
where one person over the other, you want like an adult thing where we're working together mutually. Would you ever be open? So you said you'd be open to talking to Nick. Would you be open to talking to Nick on like a stream or something?
Absolutely.
And say moderated, so either Crumb or myself or someone.
Yeah.
And the goal is to come in and figure that shit out.
Absolutely. Like I would.
Before he finishes answering, let me just say I'm maintaining my policy that I set out at the onset. I believe that it is improper for me to talk to Ron during the lawsuit, and I will not do it. I will not, during the lawsuit, talk to Ron Toye on any sort of stream at all. It is not good for him to talk to me. It is not good because of the questions I would ask him, and I will not put him in that position. I won't do it. Afterwards, you know, maybe something like that. During the lawsuit, no way. No way will I be accused of doing something to impact the lawsuit at a tangible level, like talking to one of the defendants. The same goes for Monica, Jamie Markey, or some senior representative at Funimation. I'm not going to do that. I've never reached out to them to do that, and I wouldn't. Do that. I may, like, if this won't happen, but if one of Ron's attorneys wanted to talk, I would afford them the same platform that Ty Beard got, because I believe that would be funny and interesting, and that would be great. Also, their lawyers, they can make the decisions about what will impact the lawsuit that they are presently litigating. That's a little bit different from a client. And so humbly, with respect, no, I will not do that before anybody decides to ask. After the lawsuit, you know, different story.
Everyone comes in genuine, though.
Yeah,
that's the
I've been genuine to all of you guys. I do the same with Nick. You know what I mean? Like, this is how I am just in general. Like, and do you want to know something, Ken? Like,
what's up?
When I talk about like progression, you did say some things and some stuff that made me really start thinking, and I got a book that is my next on the list.
Oh, no, Ron, stop it. Stop it. You have to stop.
What's that?
The courage to be disliked. It's something I'm working on because I know it's a weakness in my game, and it is something that is convicting my heart even as you speak. It's like, why can't I forgive him without it? And it's like, it's something that I'm working on, man.
And
but yeah,
I'm glad that you are.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you are working on stuff.
I listen to people, and it's like I'm okay with criticism, and that's part of growing and being a human.
You're not okay with criticism. You want to be okay with criticism. That's my criticism.
Let me just shock everybody and let them know I'm gonna fuck up again.
Oh, Ron! Don't worry. we know there's still minutes left on the podcast. Minutes to hours. There's still days in the week to expend. We know. And
I'm gonna be great sometimes.
Nope, that's less likely.
It is what it is. People tell me to look at certain facets of my life and get better at. Cool. Let me do it. Let me be intentional with it and not just say I'm gonna do something and be.
This is turning into like my personal pontification and preaching stream about life. Just because some people, even a lot of people, tell you to change a certain aspect of yourself does not mean that you should give them any sort of credibility. There are people, now I don't know if that's what Ron's doing, but I want to put this out there because Ron actually does seem like the kind of guy, like, well, look, I got a book. You said this about me, now I've got a book about it. This person said this about me, now I've got a book about it. People have to have your permission to initiate change within you and to validly criticize you. They do. You have to give them that permission. That's a commodity that you should value about yourself. You should say, this person, like, honestly, I like Ken. I think Ken's great. Ken cracks me up. Should Ron at all listen to Ken Jennings? No! For the love of God, no! Of course not! Ken has no basis to speak into your life. I mean, he's a therapist and he got some things right about how you're a ridiculous human being, and that's fine. So did a lot of people. But his name is not Ken Jennings. You've never met him. You're taking him at his word that he's a therapist. I think he is, mostly because of how long-winded he is and how sincere he seems, which is just an embarrassing therapist characteristic. But you don't know. And he's not your therapist. And you and your therapist probably know much more about your personality and have many more critical factors to deal with before you listen to guy on the internet who made fun of you a little bit, and then you ended up talking to him. Why are you giving that person permission to enter into your life and for you to then proactively decide that not only are you going to say you're going to change, but you're going to be intentional about it and take it super serious? There's any number of people in Ron's life, and this is where the criticism boils down to. There are any number of people in Ron's life who Ron has a much higher duty to accept their criticism than Ken Jennings or Nick Rekieta. And again, this is Ron's problem. Now he's got like this book about needing to be disliked. Again, Ron, whether I like you or not should be irrelevant to your life. Not that you need to give yourself permission for me to dislike you. That should never even enter your radar. I should be discounted as someone who doesn't know you ever, and ultimately, you have no interest in swaying in any direction. Like that should be obvious. That should be obvious. Guys, if someone in Arizona is yelling at you about how you act and you live in New York and they're a person on the internet behind a screen name, you shouldn't really be concerned about what their assessment is of you, even if they get some things right. Because if they got some things right, it's mostly just some good guessing. But it doesn't speak to what level, it's not even how right they are, but what the level of importance is on that to-do list. Oh God! Now I feel like a therapist.
You lazy fuck and not do anything.
Okay. So I'll tell you what. I will reach out to Nick after the stream ends, and I'll see if he's up for something like that. And I guess we can do the.
I'm pretty sure I responded that no, I'm not.
Yeah. So she can do that side of it.
Absolutely.
So, I'll put a pin in that for now, but I think that would be fun. And like I said, I'll be happy to, if you want.
I don't remember. I could check, but I'm pretty sure Ken reached out to me and I said roughly the same thing. Not during the suit.
Either or not, I can come and try and keep things tame.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pick sides here. Like I said on the stream, I might poke fun at you for certain things, but
you know what I mean? I'm okay with like confrontation, and people don't have to treat me with kid gloves. Like, if they have hard questions, there's some hard shit out there that's they have the right to ask me, and it's like I'll answer what I can, and I won't answer what I can't. But
the problem is you don't understand what the hard questions are. Wait, hold on. Got a message I may have to respond. Ron doesn't understand what the hard questions are because Ron thinks the hard questions are about his past, where he likes to beat women or whatever. That's not a hard question, Ron. We all know you are violent towards women that you were married to. We get it. We get that. That's not a hard question. Oh, Ron, did you beat your wife? Well, well, it says right here you did. So, we know that. That's more a statement. Ron, you beat your ex-wife. And then you move on because that's not the hard question. The hard questions are stuff akin to what Ken is asking about what are your goals here? And then the way Ron answers them, if you look at the Kiwi Farms, is horrifying. Like, he wants to embarrass Vic. He wants to hurt Vic. And so then you get into the questions of, well, why? Why did you want to do this? Why did you pick this guy and go after him? Well, he assaulted my family. How do you know that? Have you considered that she's lying to you? Have you considered that the reason you never heard this story is because you're a violent, reactive pile of trash? Or have you considered that the reason you didn't hear this story is because Monica never wanted you to hear this story? Those are harder questions. Have you considered what it means that Monica didn't share this with you and was going to work with this guy constantly? Have you considered what it means in those ways? Those are hard questions. But Ron doesn't recognize those, and he just doesn't, that doesn't enter his thought as what the hard question is.
He doesn't, anybody doesn't have to feel like they have to treat it like they're on eggshells. Just shoot it straight.
So let me ask you a hard question then.
Sure.
What, of all the things I've pointed out in my different things, which one hit you the most?
The psychopathy situation, because there's some stuff that I've worked through in my past that it hit a chord. Because I don't
going into that, or
you're evaluating it based on those things.
Well, it was not so much psychopathy, more sociopathy.
That right.
Psychopathy has the more control to it.
Right.
And sociopathy is the more, it's very mixed, and like I said, it was a hard thing to do because, a lot of times the psychopathy, you don't have the stability in jobs. There's a lot of times job switching. So it's very rare to see someone who's stable, is able to maintain a job and be able to do that. So like I said, it was a hard analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
do you feel as though those things kind of still impact you today? Or do you feel as though maybe that was a big thing before, but maybe it's creeping back up or something? Because if it hits you.
Yeah. Continue what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I was saying, if that was something that hits you, is that something where you're worried about it resurfacing, or is it resurfacing and you're trying to keep it down?
always, and that's the part where it's just being honest with yourself. And my opinion and how my progression has been is to never, in my way, is to always remember the work and what the work has been. So I know that there's always a progression of trying to get.
Okay, I want to hear the rest of what he's saying, but I have a problem with these type of people. Where the work is the important part, right? Like the journey is what matters. I mean, sometimes, right? But like, if you spend your entire life trying to build a cabinet and you end up with a pile of boards, it doesn't matter how hard you worked on the cabinet. You didn't ever get a cabinet. You just had a pile of boards. The work isn't what always matters, and especially not when we're talking about like self-awareness or self-improvement. The work is something you can point to for other people, and this is armchair psychology here. This is going back to the notion of control. I want to control what other people think about me, not based on what they perceive, but on the things that I did. And so when they perceive me in a way that I don't like, I will just hit them with all of the work that I've put into it. They can infer that I was worse and that I am therefore now better. But that's a dangerous game, isn't it? Because it might not be true. So again, focusing on the work and valuing the work so much is a problem, because it's your way of controlling the narrative. Well, I've put in the work. You should have seen how I was. I was a really bad guy, and now, but it's like, and now you're still bad, might be the answer. So then all that work was nothing. And no matter how many times you yell it into people's faces that you did it, if it's not reflected in who you are, and they're still like, but you're still a pile of garbage, so I'm not sure what to do about that. That's not very helpful.
To be better. So yeah, it bothered me because I know that back then, and even now, sometimes there's been moments where I'm like, holy shit, if people, that is bad. It's not, it sounds crazy, but I know the heart behind it. And that's why it was bothersome to me, because it is something that I'm intent on working on. And literally in my office, I have on my disc profile,
you're not intent on working on it. You're intent on having done the work on it. There's a big, big, big difference. There's a big difference. Look, guys, I suck at fixing cars, right? I always hire someone to do it because I'm not good at it. There are things I'm good at doing, and car work is not one of them. If I spent all day and all night and all of a week trying to like replace a radiator, I would never accomplish this task, ever. But I could point to how, look, I've been working on this radiator. I put it in. I read the books about it. I watched the YouTube videos. I went out and bought the tools. I got in there. I was cranking. I was cleaning grease and shit off my hands all day. But the radiator's still, like the old one's still in the car, you dummy. It doesn't, the car can't drive. Well, but what about the work? What about the work I put in?
Talks about the things for me to be aware of. And with my profile, which I'll email it to you, Chris, it says that when cornered, I can use aggression and these things because it is something that has haunted me. I don't want to be remembered as this Irish guy who used anger and aggression to get my way. I don't want that to be my legacy. And it sucks that my natural disposition is to be aggressive. I hate that aspect about myself. I want to be patient. I want to be caring and understanding. And so it's something I'm intent on working on. So it was a reminder of my past and how far I still have to go to be even better. And that's why it bothered me.
Yet again, you're on the internet. On the internet, you have infinite time to respond. Infinity. Because you could never respond. You could respond a million years from now. It doesn't matter. Infinite time. Respond. You never have to be aggressive. This is the excuse, right? I hate that I'm always so aggressive. Well, unhook your phone from Twitter. Turn off, like delete Kiwi Farms. Get a flip phone. Don't use social media at work. Put a thing on your computer to block it. Whatever it takes. Stop being aggressive. Get an accountability partner and be like, hey, I really want to respond to this asshole. And they'd be like, look, no, I'm not going to give you access to your social media account. I'm not going to do that. There's a lot you could do. A lot. He doesn't actually want to. He wants to have done the work on it and never get the result. And that is, by the way, that is the best place to be. Well, I'm improving. I'm gonna keep improving. I may never get there. No accountability, but I'm gonna keep improving.
Okay. Anything else bother you, or was that the big one?
That was it, man.
Okay. So there's something that I think someone pointed out in the chat, or something I've also observed too, is where do you take responsibility for all the things that have happened in the last 16 months? Do you take responsibility for anything?
All of it. It's all. Everything is me.
Well, what is you though? What?
Okay, we're gonna have to unpack that in just a second. Unfortunately, Lady Rackets has asked for my help. I'll be right back, guys. I apologize. Be right back. Never apologize. I'll get better. I'm putting in the work. I'm putting in the work. All right. I apologize. Okay. Nixx says, Ron always randomly mentions his Irishness. Reminds me of what my pastor said about blaming your heritage for your sin. Quote, you don't have fiery Latin blood, you're abusive. You aren't a jolly Irishman. You're a drunk. Dang. Dang. So there you go. All right, let's get into this. I want to go back just a couple seconds and get that last statement again.
Chat, or something I've also observed too, is where do you take responsibility for all the things that have happened in the last 16 months? Do you take responsibility for anything?
All of it. It's all, everything is me.
Well, what is you though? What is you and what isn't you?
All of my tweets are my tweets. All of the stuff that I say is my tweets, and or anything I say is me. So obviously, anything that anybody would have to say negatively, I have to take ownership of, and pay the cost. Whether it's people losing trust in me or looking at me in a negative sense, that's on me, and that's where it's like trying to be better and working on.
Notice him trying to rehab his image, and it's ooh lad.
And sometimes I mess up, and sometimes I don't want to give people the certain things of myself, but anything that I've done that it might have hurt somebody, it sucks. But
does it though? Does it suck? This is always the question, right? Like, does it suck, or does it suck that you got called out on it? Right? And that's a tough question for people to deal with. But listen to the cop out. How much responsibility is yours? All of it. It's all me. Well, it's obviously not all you. Right? It's obviously it's not all you, because there are 3 other parties to this whole thing. There's Monica, there's Funimation, and there's Jamie Markey. It's not just all you. Plus, there are other people involved. They weren't all sued. There are various reasons they may or may not have been sued, but there are other people involved in this thing. So he's very haphazardly throwing out, well, it's all me. It's all me. That's yeah, oh man. Well, it's really easy to take blame for everything, isn't it? Well, it's all me. Okay, COVID's your fault. Great. COVID happened after you talked. Oh, thank God. It's all me isn't actually an analysis of the question. And Ron doesn't believe it. Right? Ron's like, yeah, well, I made the tweets, so it must be all me. But Ron believes some of those tweets. At least that's his whole thing. So he believes some of those things that he said. And so then it's not him. Like if I'm telling the truth about someone, it's not my fault that that's the truth. And it's not my responsibility that that's the truth. And it's not on me that that's the truth. Right? It can't be. It can't be. And that is why, shockingly, the courts say that frivolous defamation lawsuits need to be stopped. That's the whole basis for the anti-slap that they filed. Because if it was all him, then all of Vic's damages would be Ron's fault. Like, necessarily, they would have to be. But they're apparently not, according to Ron. He's living in this dual space. They've argued in court that Vic's damages are his own. And Ron has argued in this very podcast that Vic's damages are his own, and that they're, well, he shouldn't have gone out and done these things. Well, okay. So what's the truth, Ron? Is it all you, or is it not all you? And if it's not all you, then what part of it is? But here's the best way, pro tip. The best way to avoid accountability is to take all of the accountability. It's a great strategy. It's a great strategy. It's all my fault. Of course it is. I'll go deal with it. But then you never have to answer what it is or if it's dealt with, because it's just all you. Yeah. Kodo Jack says, hey, so I checked the hearing transcripts for Jack in 2018 at both hearings. The only thing he said about shadow banning was that it wasn't biased against Republicans. So would shadow banning at all be considered prejudice, or would it need a bias? There's There's nothing actually wrong legally with shadow banning, either direction. Under current law, they could shadow ban just people named Bill. Fine.
You know, it is what it is at this point. I can only work on getting better in the future. But
do you think?
Look, I take responsibility for everything I did, and it just is what it is. All I can do is try and improve going forward. Oh my God, that is it's anathema to accountability to say that everything's your fault. I can't fix it now, but going forward, I'll be better. That is the opposite of accountability.
Think you hurt Vic?
I'm sure he was hurt by some of the stuff I said.
How bad do
you think you hurt Vic? I'm sure he was hurt by some of the stuff I said. So already he's subconsciously at least passing off the accountability he just claimed, because Ron isn't claiming accountability at all. Active voice. I did X. Passive voice. This was there.
If you had to guess, how bad would you say?
I wouldn't know the scale, but I'm sure he was affected by it.
Okay.
What the hell? Again, what kind of answer is that?
So, with that, I think there's, a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that my mind's running on a few different things right now. It's hard to kind of focus back to one.
Focus, Ken.
I see there's a lot of kind of conflict within yourself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out in your responses to me. And that's one of the things I pointed out in my long analysis is, that desire to go back to aggression and I don't want to say violence, but, those kind of things.
Say violence, Ken. Say violence. It is violence.
You're pretty cordial. You've been upset a little bit. But when it comes to a different means of communication, things change. It goes back. It turns on and off. I don't know if that's just the means of communication. Communication's, 80% of how you say it.
Right.
And, the actual words themselves are a small portion of that.
Right.
And I feel, from what I'm seeing is that flip-flop is where my concern was, is because you'll say one thing and do another. And that's where that's where my thoughts were.
Yeah.
You're not, that change may not have happened.
Never happened.
That constant flip-flop is there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say you haven't. You probably have made a significant amount of...
No, Ken! No, don't fall into the trap! Ken, no, that's the trap! I've gotten better. You don't know how bad I really was. That's true. You never know how bad someone was. Here's the scary thing about that statement. Because we are yes biased. I don't know if you guys know this. You're yes biased. Yes, you are yes biased. And here's how I'll say it. Wouldn't you agree that you're yes biased? Or I don't even know the contra question to that. Wouldn't you agree you're yes biased? Oh yeah. Oh shit. I didn't even realize I said yeah. We're all yes biased. This is how sales works on us. It's easy to say yes to people. It's much harder to say no. It really is. For the majority of people, they're yes biased. All right. So our yes bias says this. You don't even know how bad I really was. That says to us, yes, this guy is better. But he doesn't say better, just says that he was different. You don't know how bad I was. Maybe he wasn't as bad and is now worse. It's this neat escape and a simple trick that people can use when trying to mitigate what they did. It's just by alluding to difference in the past in a way that the person will infer is positive. I've positively improved. A lot of people go through life and get worse. You know this. You know someone who used to do they do speed every now and then, and now they're on heroin and dead. or whatever, right? Like, you know, someone who used to spank his kids and now he picks up a stick and hits them with it. You know, someone who at first would try and convince a video game that he was putting quarters in, like using some sort of string or whatever, and now he knocks off liquor stores. Like, you know, people who get worse. But whenever we're talking to someone and having a rational conversation at some level, we have this default bias to assume that the past was a progression from bad to better. But a lot of people get worse as they get older at something, especially if they're working in the wrong way, or they're defensive, or they're not actually working at all. And Ken, you don't know that Ron was worse than he is now. That's an inference. Very dangerous one to make. Don't trust any people.
Change versus where you were 8 years ago.
I will. If you knew me, you would know that is 100% a fair statement.
How?
Yes.
And I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that you made change, obviously.
Yeah.
Now,
there's a lot of way to go.
How do you know?
And
What
that
if,
is true.
What if he's murdering children? What if he and Monica have had 3 kids and he just eats them? You don't know. God damn it.
And so I want to go down a really difficult road.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do, I use this as an example with people, more adults than anything, because it's really hard to teach it to kids. But I have the personal belief that if you're confident in your beliefs on something, that you should be able to argue the opposing side perfectly.
Yeah.
Or almost perfectly. So if, say I personally believe that gay people should get married, I should be able to give a very thorough argument for why gay people shouldn't get married. And
Right.
Do it, Ken. Based therapist.
the way that it should be laid out and be able to argue against that.
Sure.
With that, there are several different things that have happened along the course of the way that maybe that would be something to explore. Try and make up the argument for where is maybe Nick or Ty coming up with a good argument for what has happened. Where are they coming from? Think about the other side of it. And with that in mind, I want to ask, again, a really hard question. How would you feel if the statements Monica has made about Vic weren't completely true?
I mean, if they weren't completely true, then, it would be disappointing, but, I would be disappointed, I guess, if they weren't true.
I don't know if Ken Jennings just laid the most Kafkaesque trap on the planet. But let's just lay this out. If Vic didn't sexually assault my fiance, I would be disappointed, is the answer Ron just gave. Now, I don't think that's the answer Ron meant to give. I don't know if that's the answer he meant to give, but that's what he said. Well, if he didn't assault her in the way she's, I would be disappointed. What? Wait. What? Why? What? Shouldn't you be happy? Shouldn't you be happy? Like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Like, if my significant other, or if Lady Rackets was like, you know what, I was sexually assaulted by this person. Really hard to talk about, and this is what happened. And then I found out that was untrue. Oh my God, first thing. Oh, thank God that wasn't true. I'm so happy that you weren't sexually assaulted. My next thing is, well, what the hell happened? Like, why the story? Why? Well, what is the story? This is covering something up. So what's it covering up? I got to know that. Is it just like a weird interpretation? Is this a defense mechanism? Did something worse happen? Was it someone else? Like, what? I need to know. Like, what? How do I figure this out? But my first thing is, thank God this bad thing didn't happen. I'd be disappointed. What? You'd be disappointed? That's literally it. And again, this tells you, Ron has never once considered the possibility that Monica hyperbolically explained something to keep him in check. First of all, she never told him about it. And think about that psychologically. For 5 years, Ron is engaged to Monica Rial. For 5 years, Monica Rial is still working with Vic, whom she's been working with for like 10 years prior to that. So for 5 more years, she works with this guy that she never tells him allegedly assaulted her. He has never once taken a moment, never a moment to think, maybe he didn't do that. Maybe she remembered it wrong. Maybe it was someone else. Maybe it was something else. Maybe she's not comfortable saying they had some sort of relationship. I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, she chose to tell this story. And Ron has never thought of the implications of the story being false. And more importantly, Ron has never considered the implications of the story being true. And that's even scarier. That's even scarier. If it was true, why would she subject herself to 5 years of it? And more importantly, why would she attend conventions with this person without you? And oh, I know you're very busy loan officering. I really can't make it. I've got a work conference to go to. And she doesn't say, I really need you there. Because, look, at a convention a couple years ago, thing happened and I felt really unsafe. And I need you to help me be safe. She never once did that, Ron. If it's true, it's almost worse.
Well, it's had a long downstream effect, though, if that were to be the case.
I mean, if we were to look at it as an isolate, if she was the only person who had ever said anything, that would be true. But that's where I keep going back to it's like, this is a term in the lawsuit, death by 1,000 cuts, not by us, but by Vic himself. So would I be upset about the one of the 1,000 cuts? I mean, it would be upsetting, but that's where, in the situation where I'm in this, why we fought so hard is we know in that situation what the truth was for her. You know what I mean?
No, you don't. That's the thing. You don't know. You don't know. And we can tell from your answer that you've never even questioned it. Never for a second have you thought it might have been something else. And you just said, well, look, even if, let's break this sentence down. Even if the person that I trust lied about this really big thing, we have all these other things. The person that you trust lied about really big thing, then you have to automatically go, are those other things real? Why did person that I trust lie about really big thing? Ron, this is a really big thing. It's not a little thing like someone stole a pack of juicy fruit in 11th grade. Like, this is a big deal if it happened. If someone that you trust and love is willing to lie about a huge thing, then all of these people that you don't know, trust, or love might be willing to lie about it too. And the reality is, most of their things are far less than what Monica has accused Vic of. See, Ron keeps talking about all this stuff, but here's the deal. If all Vic was ever accused of doing by anybody was just that, oh, he didn't sign my Yowie art, he hugged me, and I'm not really sure I wanted to be hugged, he wouldn't have been fired. He wouldn't have been canceled in the way that he was. It was the fact that women that he worked with came out and had serious accusations against him. That's what does it. That's what does it. And they didn't just do it publicly. Ron really likes to hit on that timeline about public. They've been working on Vic for a while. And here's the thing that Ron doesn't realize, probably, because Ron has no analytical capability at all. I am convinced. Ron is probably an Oblivion NPC or whatever, just walking around. He's not thinking through things. This is why he thinks that reading a book is doing work, right? Because he's not actually noodling through or wrestling with an idea. He's just, look, I have this thing. Now I've read information on the subject, and therefore I am better on the subject. But here's my analysis of this and to why this is important. Ron doesn't realize that Monica, despite, again, never telling Ron any of these things. Remember, he learned the jelly bean story from me, and he learned the sexual assault story from me, from this show and this lawsuit. That's where Ron learned these things about his fiance of 5 years. All right? Ron probably had no idea that Monica was talking about doing this to Vic in late 2018 with other people. She didn't tell him that either. And here's the other question. If she did tell him that, he didn't know why. Because as he stated, he learned about these things from this show, which is embarrassing as all get out. Ron, there's a lot she doesn't tell you. A lot of it, and you've never questioned any of it. That should bother you, man.
And so, while to answer your question with a genuine answer, it would be upsetting if she had made that up. You know,
I mean, it would have cost you $300,000.
The money for me is never about anything. I like that part of it.
Cost you mental health for age 16, 17.
Money's nothing. That part of it's nothing. It's charging me $1 million. Money's nothing. Money's nothing. Millions of dollars. You know how much we spent on lawyers, how much we had to spend to keep those people quiet, but money's nothing. Ron. Of course money's something. It's okay for money to matter. This weird idea for Ron to pretend he's a billionaire playboy. Ron, buddy, you're a loan officer. You've been doxxed. We've seen your house. Not that impressive. You're not a billionaire. It's okay. It's fine. But stop acting like this money thing does. Well, just $300,000. Shut up. Shut up. Nobody believes you.
That would be the more part that would suck, but it's over. Like I don't cry about spilt milk or anything like that. Like that part would suck. It would more about be.
You literally cry about spilled milk constantly.
A bridge of this isn't accurate information. So then can I trust you in the future? You know what I mean?
You already can't, Ron. You already can't. You're right there. You're right there. You're like at the finish line, and instead of crossing it, you turned around and started thumbing yourself. Ron, why didn't she tell you these things while going to conventions with the man who allegedly assaulted her, having dinner with him, showing up on videos with him, hugging him, kissing him? Why didn't she tell you, Ron? Why? I'm trying to save you. If you would come to college, Drexel would pick you up by your little manlet shirt and slap you. Oh my God. Ron, why won't she tell you this stuff? What else isn't she telling you?
There'd be a trust issue there.
Right. And that would be the problem. Because money, it's like, it is what it is. Like money, we can earn more, we can save more, and life's still going. It's the...
No. Listen. Ron, if it comes out that Monica lied, if it was conclusively shown that Monica lied, do you think she would earn more? Do you think people want that around? I wager most people don't want that around anyway. But do you think people would want someone who's going to lie about something this serious working around them? Costs company hundreds of thousands of dollars, tons of goodwill with its fans. You think she's going to be just hanging around? I mean, you better hope you don't ever test that theory.
Stuff that can't get back, and the breach of trust would be the problem.
I agree.
It's not just a breach of trust with you.
So with that, I'm sorry, did someone have input?
No.
Okay, I thought someone starting to say something.
Nope.
That was me, Ken. Sorry. That was me. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
How do you feel when, like, myself or someone else challenges what Monica's statements are, her recollection of the incident? Like, what does that feel like for you?
You know, part of it is, in the beginning, it was frustrating because I'm like, with my brain, how it works is like logical. It's like, why would somebody risk all of these things if it was a lie? But now
Oh my God! You work in selling homes? You work in selling people on life-crippling debt? Why would someone lie? Ron! The people you work with and for lie to people every day. You're in an industry that its lies were so big. By the way, an industry that made billions of dollars without lying, without doing it. An industry that for no fathomable reason, the mortgage industry, ever since being created, has only ever gotten more profitable. Only ever gotten more profitable. Think about it. It used to be, oh, well, we did these on, first of all, you used to buy houses cash. Then you used to buy houses on these like 5-year loans. And the payments weren't that big because houses didn't cost so much, because people didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars on command from the bank. And then it was like a 10-year mortgage and then a 15-year mortgage. And oh my God, they suddenly decided to, wait a minute. If we take a 15-year mortgage and we double that to 30 years, we can reduce their payments by a third. Now, yes, do the math on that. If we double the term, we reduce the payments by a third, not by half. We're not just extending out our window. We're massively increasing the amount of money we get by extending the window, extending the amortization schedule to 30 years. Without the crash in 2008, we were on the road to 40 and 50-year mortgages coming. Of course we were. They're already doing interest-only loans with balloon payments, so you'd be forced to refinance in 10 years. Like, you only pay the interest to the bank because the bank doesn't care about the principal. pro tip, the interest is what matters. The principal, they still have the asset on their balance sheet. They still own the home if you fail. So all they really care about is that interest amount. Now, they have a depreciating asset if they have a conventional mortgage, because every time you pay a little bit of the principal, they own a little bit less of the house. But if they just take an interest-only loan at 10 years with a balloon payment, not only do they get you to guaranteed refi because you're not making those principal payments, they guarantee you to refi in 10 years because you can't afford the balloon payment. They've got the interest that whole time. And then on the refinance, they're going to collect fees, and they're most likely to refinance with the same bank unless something dramatic happens. So they're going to get fees on the first year. So now instead of a 30-year loan, they can do 3 10-year interest-only loans, and at the end of it, they collect the fees 3 times, the same amount of interest they would have gotten over the course of a 30-year fixed, and at the end of it, they still own the house as an asset. The mortgage industry was nowhere near any sort of integrity or change or loss of profitability. They're always finding a way to give people access to more money at higher profit to the bank. They've been doing it for over a century. Ron, your entire industry is about lying to people about what's best for them. That's the whole thing. Why would they do it? I don't know. Why did Countrywide Mortgage give a stripper who makes $30,000 a year 4 different loans for $250,000 houses? Why did they do it? Why? Because lying benefits people all the time. Your whole premise about me is that I would just go online and lie. Apply the logic both ways, Ron. Why would Monica do what you're accusing me of doing? Because there's a tangible benefit to her. Now find out what it is.
I just see it in a completely different light. This far removed is, you can form your opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and that's just what it is. You know what I mean?
No, they're not. You didn't let them have their opinion. Because if you just let people, if Ron had just let people have their opinion, Ron wouldn't be in this lawsuit. He didn't do that.
And you're free to think about the interaction one way or the other, and someone else is, entitled to their thing. But it's just an opinion.
Sprite Cola says, Nick, my respect for you doubled tonight while I was catching up on the stream. Hope this is enough to buy you a good drink. Hey, man, it is. It is. Thank you so much. And with that, I will pour, this is what I'm drinking tonight. Brother Justice whiskey. This is actually a very good whiskey. This is not a bourbon. This is just a whiskey. I like it. I like it. But thank you. I really do appreciate it. I don't know what caused your respect for me to go up on this stream, but I'm glad it did. Makes me happy.
Okay. 1 second. I have to step away for a second. Give me 1 second.
No problem. I'll continue on that
get out
discussion
of here,
there.
Ken.
So, I mean, that's a lot to unpack, and that's a lot to kind of have an answer for right away. But honestly, over the course of this time, like, how have you felt, and how have you, like, kind of reacted, or conversations you've had with Monica about when people come out with things that directly contradict some of the stuff that she's talked about?
So everything that she's talked about that people think directly contradict it is coming from people who don't know what the situation. So, for instance, like they mentioned, there's no balconies or patios, and then that was proven that there are in those places.
No, it was the opposite, Ron. It was the opposite. There aren't balconies or patios.
But people don't want to admit that still. And then they point to Stan Dolan, who still owes my fucking fiance money, you little piece of shit.
Oh, well. Wow. Goodness gracious. Man, did you hear the venom there? Stan Dolan, my fucking fiance money, you fucking piece of shit. Really? Really? You guys picked him. You guys picked him. Did he owe your fucking fiance money when you put him in an affidavit without asking him what he remembered? Ooh. Goodness gracious. Now we've got an allegation against Stan Dolan that he somehow owes Monica money. Well. Oh, I love Stan. Stan did this. Stan went against us. Stan owes us money. Blah, blah, blah. Not about the money, guys. It's never about the money, right? Oh, I could just make more money. How much money could Stan Dolan possibly owe Monica? Like, hypothetically, let's accept Ron's assertion. Let's take it at face value. Stan Dolan owes Monica money. Well, we've got a couple options. Stan borrowed money from Monica. That seems unlikely. It seems unlikely that a voice actor would lend any significant amount of money to a con runner. Maybe they would, maybe not. I don't know. More likely, Stan ran a con and Monica feels she was owed something from the con. Well, I don't know what their agreements are, but I've seen a couple convention contracts from some high-profile voice actors and actresses. So let's say her minimum was, I don't know, $5,000. $5,000. If you pay $5,000 to have Monica Rial show up at your convention, you need to probably just eat a pile of acetone or whatever. Powder. Does acetone come in a powder? Just eat that. If you're going to pay $5,000 for her to show up. But let's say that was it. Let's say they guaranteed a minimum of $5,000 for Monica to show up at a convention that Stan was running. And then she obviously, if Stan owed her money, it seems like maybe she wouldn't have hit her minimum. Now, that's not implausible, in my opinion, that Monica doesn't hit her minimum. I've seen her lines. People don't seem to be all that enthused to go visit her. So Monica doesn't clear $5,000. So Stan owes her, on this hypothetical, somewhere between $0 and $5,000. But Monica is kind of a big name, and she may not have big lines, but she does have people show up. So I have to imagine that she's got at least a couple grand out of it. How much could he possibly owe her? And like, what is this is the thing, right? Now Ron has just levied an accusation and said, owes me money. Ron has all throughout the stream said that, oh, $300,000, not a big deal. We'll just earn more. Water under bridge. It's not about the money. He's quibbling over what? Maybe $1,000. Listen, Ron, I got people who owe me way more than $1,000, buddy. Multiple. If they all paid me up tomorrow, I would buy the sweetest TV you've ever seen in your life. It would be great. Not only would I buy the TV, I would have money over to renovate the room to better accommodate the TV. It would be fantastic. But you're bitching about what? How much money? How much money? Put it down. Put it down on the table. What does Stan owe you? I bet it's $0. I bet you're just mad at Stan because he went ahead and put a fist right through your gaping narrative.
From your shit-ass convention in Hawaii. Hope you see this, you asshole. Side note. So they say, oh, Stan Dolan did.
From the Hawaii convention. Oh, so HawaiiCon and, or not HawaiiCon, KawaiiCon? KawaiiCon in Honolulu. Your claim isn't with Stan, buddy. Your claim is with KawaiiCon. Your friend Faisal Ahmed runs KawaiiCon. Faisal Ahmed, who provided the affidavit for you, in which I'm pretty sure he lied, but either way, that buddy of yours owns the convention that owes Monica money, because I'm guessing Stan Dolan in his personal capacity, did not guarantee funds to Monica. If he did, he and I are going to have some words about that. But I'm guessing it's KawaiiCon, and it's almost like you have the owners of KawaiiCon, or the owner of it, going ahead and providing you an affidavit, being very friendly, and actually being vocal on Twitter about it, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly vocal in that We Run Anime Cons group. Now, hey guys, was there a quid pro quo? Was there a quid pro quo? Think about that. Doesn't that just change the whole landscape? Faisal Ahmed produces an affidavit because his convention happens to owe Monica money. Was there an exchange there? Did they buy an affidavit? I don't know. But here's what I don't get. I don't get how Stan Dolan goes from convention runner of a show to personally owing Monica Rial without more details. He says it's from the Hawaii convention. The most logical inference is that there's a contract dispute between Monica Rial and KawaiiCon over the amount paid for her appearance while Stan Dolan was running it. And he says that Stan owes her money, but I'm sorry, those liabilities are owned by the convention. And if you tried to sue Stan for it, he would say, LLC Shield, that convention owes. I'm guessing, LLC Shield, that convention owns that liability. That's not my debt. I didn't sign it as me. I signed it as runner for the show. If I had to guess, which I do here, I have to just guess. But I would be hard pressed to think that Stan personally agreed to pay Monica, but maybe he did. If he didn't,
discredits your statement.
Sorry, Ohana-con. It's Ohana-con? Ah, damn it. That's not the same one. Was Ohana-con Kawaii? Did that get transferred over? Because I thought that's the one that Faisal Ahmed runs. Oh, that just probably ruined my whole thing, if that's true. Ohana-con, Hawaii. I can't even find Ohana-con. Is it Otaku? Otaku Ohana? Because I'm pretty sure that Faisal Ahmed took over the assets of, or the conventions for Stan Dolan. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I have no idea. We'll have to see.
Well, he puts her in the room. So then what discredits it? And then Vic in his...
No, he didn't put her in the room. That's the thing. He didn't put her in the room, Ron. Well, sound of one hand clapping, that would be very interesting.
His takedown letter admits that he kissed her. And there was in his opinion, a consensual thing. So at what...
No, that's not what... Wait, hold on. That's not what Stan said.
So then what discredits it? And then Vic in his takedown letter admits that he kissed her. And there was in his opinion, a consensual thing. So at what element of the discussion has been disproven outside of a difference in opinion of how the actions were interpreted by each party, because she's in the room. Vic puts her in the room. Vic admits to kissing her. And so now
not in his takedown letter, but admitting to kissing and having her in the room. Ron, you gotta realize, buddy, the implication of that statement is that Monica might have been consensually kissing Vic and didn't tell you and kept going to conventions with him. Now, I'm not saying anything else ever happened, but she never told you.
The only quibble is, was it consensual or not? And that's the part that's interesting in this situation.
That's not the only quibble, but...
Situation is, you're free to have an opinion. Monica has an opinion, and that's where we are.
No. This is going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of beta men like Ron. If a woman consents to a kiss, this is not necessarily explicit verbal consent, and anybody who has ever kissed anyone ever knows that the majority of times you don't go, do I have permission to place my lips upon you? And they say, yes, you have my express consent to issue one kiss upon my cheek, blah, 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 blah. That's not how it works. If someone consents to a kiss, and they can consent to that in all kinds of ways, including nonverbal communication, including reciprocation, things like that. If they do that, and then later change their mind and decide they didn't like it, that is not non-consent. That is regret. And those are two very, very different things. And it's not an opinion. It's not an opinion. And let me humbly suggest that Monica didn't revoke her consent to the kiss from Vic Mignogna, whatever happened between them, until about late 2018, when it became convenient to do so. This idea that, well, it's just your opinion, and Monica's got her opinion. No. Consent is something that we can measure, because consent has to be something that can be determined. Because if anyone can go, I didn't consent. If anyone can do that at any time, then you don't have consent. It's not a real thing. It's a fiction. And fictions aren't helpful in determining guilt on something like this.
You know what I mean? But to say that the situation didn't happen at all is no longer anything that anyone can stand by, because that part has been established, that she was in the room, there was a kiss. Now, was it consensual?
It's not even just about the kiss, Ron. There's a lot of other facts that only Monica says, like that he grabbed her, that he threw her on the bed, that he climbed on top of her, a mountaineering expedition that would put any man in the ground. That he did all of these things. It's not just a kiss. Monica claimed a lot more than just a kiss. Vic has denied all of that. And no one else has corroborated it.
She says it wasn't. And he's saying it was. So then,
and that's something that's a kind of a fact-finding question, right?
Well, that's where we're leading into this, and that's where, when he doesn't come out and emphatically from the beginning deny something and leaves
he did
open interpretation to the event, that's where the fact-finding is now no longer a situation, because now the fact-finding stops because someone admits that it was there and that it
No, that's the dumbest thing. That's the dumbest thing you can say. First of all, the fact-finding doesn't stop because he admits that a kiss occurred. If the fact question is, was there consent? And Vic says no, and Monica says yes, at TCPA, the court is obligated to side with Vic. Period, period, period. That is the obligation of the court. We must accept controverted facts as true in favor of the plaintiff for the purposes of TCPA. And then you go before a jury or a fact finder who then determines the truthfulness of this fact. If consent is a question of fact rather than opinion, I contend that it has to be a question of fact, or else our criminal justice system will have to collapse. Because if it's an opinion, then how do you prosecute a rape case ever? Right? Like, how can you say, well, I didn't consent? Well, she did, though, in my opinion. We have to discern who's telling the truth. And it's a hard job to do, but at some point, consent is something that can be known. Did you agree to this? Yes or no? That's it. That's it. It's not an opinion question. And so, fact-finding doesn't stop, even if he didn't emphatically deny it from the start. But he did. Any questions of or accusations of sexual assault, sexual harassment, or more horrifying, pedophilia are absolutely false. Done. In his unsworn declaration, false. In his complaint, these are false. She falsely stated this and this and this about this thing. He has emphatically denied from the start that there was a lack of consent involved in that transaction, whatever it may have been. Ron is an idiot.
Happen. So he can't, it becomes a fact finding if someone says, no, I absolutely wasn't in the room and I didn't do this at all, blah, 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 blah. I never kissed her ever in the history of my life. Then it becomes a fact finding situation.
No, consent is a question of fact.
At that point, I think the action here is the accusation of Vic forcing himself on Monica. And I think that in itself needs to be a fact-finding question, because they need to sit down in front of, in my opinion, in front of...
I just want to draw y'all's attention down here to perception check. No. Exactly.
A jury. They need to hear Vic's side of things. They need to hear Monica's side of things. They need to have the evidence portrayed to them, the arguments put out, and then they can make a decision on who's telling the truth there. Because right now it's he said, she said, and like you've said it before, like he said, she said doesn't win in court. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, it's like when you're looking at this, there's only two people that know what happened for real. Right. And they both can say one side of something that's going to make them look better. But at the end of the day, and again, purely unfair on my part, but I've already said where I stand in the situation. Monica was still friendly with him for many years after. Monica still acted.
Let's be very clear on something. And this is not a criticism of Cress, but I want to illustrate a point of American civil law. American civil law says preponderance of the evidence, 51%, which means that in a he said, she said on a fact-finding question, the interesting part about American law is he gets to say and she gets to say. Once they have he said it and she said it, it then goes to a jury or fact finder to determine credibility. The credibility of the person, which is almost entirely subjective, goes then to the fact finder to determine which said is more correct. And it's just 1% more correct than the other. Let me humbly suggest that Monica's statement has changed 3 times, and that in her statement, she has talked about factors that were later discovered to be not correct. Stan Dolan, he doesn't back that up. I don't remember that at all. He doesn't even put them in the room together. He doesn't remember the encounter at all. So you could say that that's either incorrect, or you could just say that that's a wash. Okay, Stan Dolan doesn't exist, and you just remove Stan Dolan from the equation and then go with everything else. I went out on the balcony or patio or whatever it was. Well, the hotel doesn't have those. Now you've got problems. Then you've got the other credibility problems of what Cress is bringing up now. You kept working with them. You never said anything. You never did anything. Only when it became self-serving now do you assert that this is the thing. Also, you kept going to conventions with him. You kept working with him. There's you and him hugging just as recently as December of 2018. Those things all undermine Monica's story. They all do. And because her story is the one that is being told, that's a burden on her that she has to overcome. Her story is not consistent, and it is undermined by visible reality. Now, Vic's story is, it was consensual. It didn't work out or whatever. And everything was fine. And all of the evidence, even in the rest of Monica's story, if you take it as true, that she came back and she talked to his fiance and didn't say anything then or ever to her, despite her being her admitted friend, all of the evidence supports Vic's story, and some things undermine Monica's. It's 51%. And those discrepancies could very easily sway a fact finder to Vic's side. Or they could decide on Monica's side. But that is a question of fact. It must be determined, and the court system, it's not like, well, it's he said, she said, so it's a wash. No. This is great. If it's a fact question, he says, then she says, then the fact finder determines which one is more likely to be true based on whatever things they have at their disposal. And that thing might just be their gut or their personal biases or the fact that they want to bang one of them. It doesn't really matter. That's the thing. So Ron is absolutely incorrect about this he said, she said thing being like where it ends. No, it's not. Lots of cases are he said, she said. It's how the system has to function.
As if nothing happened for many years after. So from my perspective as a layman looking into the situation, that discredits a bit more of her side of things in terms of that.
And a lot of victims suffer from that because there is.
A lot of victims also aren't victims. That's the problem. You've co-opted the word victim. A movement has co-opted victimhood to make anybody who says anything de facto victim. But the reality is a lot of people lie. A lot of people lie. All the time. And yes, even about victimhood, and yes, even about big things, and yes, even when we can't see a motive why they would, because it doesn't make sense to us, but we're not them. You might not be crazy and the other person might be.
Is a situation where you want to give someone the opportunity to be a better person, especially if you feel like it might be an isolated incident. But then with additional information, when all this came out and you start to see, for instance, we showed 17 or so affidavits from people, and people can believe what they want, but more people came forward and put in information that will come out eventually. So then you're like, okay.
Who did? What did they say? Will come out eventually. Who are they? How do you believe their information? Why wouldn't they put their name down? Why wouldn't they put their name on an affidavit? You know why. I mean, you know why.
Okay, this is new information. And a lot of it was coming to us before the lawsuit was filed. And so then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I thought this incident was isolated, and it obviously wasn't. And a lot.
Ron is now going. The revision of history here is dumbfounding. Monica said because of the new information, she told her story. Now, Ron is saying that they got the new information after Monica told her story. Which one is it? What really happened? I mean, we know which one it was, but which one is it? He cannot keep consistency in his perspective here. It's crazy. Mithrin Emmer says, Ron only believes the reality that exists in his head and that he is spoon-fed on law Twitter. Unless they disagree with him, he lives in the land of the perpetually smug. Damn.
A lot of victims end up getting that situation where they feel like their situation was isolated, it was just them and blah, blah, blah. And then...
No, this is a fiction. This is a fiction that you're creating. This is a fiction that you're creating. Because it's convenient for people to have excuses as to why they're coming out 10, 15, 20 years later. But your entire argument in this entire lawsuit is that there's a whole history about Vic, right? He did these rumor panels for years. Years. You say there is years and hundreds of people. But, Monica just thought it was isolated. She just thought it was isolated. Her friend Jamie Markey, her friend Jessie Pridemore, her weird fetish Mars girl. Like, all of these people, Anime News Network or whatever, the industry insiders, other people have been talking about this forever. Chris Sabat, Sean Schemmel, these guys have all been saying everything forever, but Monica just thought it was an isolated incident. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. It can't, like, yes, thank you, Heather Baker. You can't think it's an isolated incident and an open secret at the same time. Of course not. You had the Yost twins living in your house. Living in your house. You know the Yost twins. You masturbate to their Instagram pictures. We can all tell. We got it. Same with Sarah Breckmeyer. This is not news to you. The only difference is the winds blew your way and you saw an opportunity to attack otherwise innocuous behavior. And that's the reality you're dealing with. And that's the reality a lot of victims are dealing with. Because victims don't act like this. Doesn't mean... By the way, when I say victims don't act like this, I don't necessarily mean that someone wasn't wronged. But they're just not victims. Being a victim is a thing that you do, either because the trauma is too great or because you allow yourself to be a victim. Not everybody has control over it. But you don't get to decide that everything's fine, nothing was a problem, and then 15 years later decide, oh, well, something was a problem and now we need to talk about it. That's not victimhood. That's a change in opinion.
And it goes on and then they find out more and more and more people were affected, and it's like, wait a second, something is going on here.
So, but at that point, it's like I've been in that situation. Like I don't know about my abuser and subsequent abuses, but I've been in that situation, right. And I understand. And there's guilt behind that, but that's something that I have to deal with, right? I can't go back. I can't retroactively go 20 years later and say they did this to me. And then absolve myself. No, I'm assuming here is a two-part. I can't go back and say that and then absolve myself of not coming forward to begin with, because that was my choice at the time to not go forward, to not cause weight.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but Cress is hitting on a very important point. I know you guys know this. It's easier to say I don't know if you guys know this. Victims are victims immediately. They're victims immediately. And then you can choose is such a weird word, but you can either be the victim or you can decide not to be the victim. And it's not like a simple decision, right? It's not like, I'm fine. That's not how it goes. But you make a series of decisions that will collectively determine whether or not you hold on to that victim status or not. It's not always conscious, but you just say, I'm going to move on from this, blah, blah, blah. You can't then, like what Cress is saying, I can't go back 10 years, 20 years and say, well, now I want to be that victim. And now I want this person to burn. Kind of don't have any evidence or proof anymore. And your memory, frankly, may not be that good. Our memories are notoriously bad. I'm sure Ken could maybe talk about that, but especially old memories, we add so much context and so much life experience back into memories when we're younger that we will manifest events that didn't happen. Our brains don't even know we do it. We do this in the short term too, on unimportant things. We do it in the long term on very important things.
Waves to not whatever else. And like, to be fair, and this is something completely, again, not fair for me to say to Monica.
Everything's fair for you to say to Monica.
If Monica does,
including that she's a fat horse-faced idiot,
decide to come on, I'll say it straight to her as well. It was her decision to continue her relationship with Vic, to continue enabling that behavior if that was the case, et cetera, et cetera. So for that to last that long, and then for her to only speak up after she heard about subsequent stories, that it doesn't absolve her of guilt for the whole time that she kept it quiet.
And that's part of why survivors stay quiet. And
no, stop running with this communist narrative that survivors, well, they stay quiet because there are infinite protections for survivors and accusers. Infinite. If they do it the right way. Go to the police. File a report. Get an objective investigation. It's not even objective. It's still weighted in your favor. Get an investigation. Privilege the question. This happened. Here are the people I know about it. Here's their statements, or you can go talk to them because they won't talk to me, blah, 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 blah. I just got to report it. Even if it's 10 years later, go do it. And here's the thing. They'll probably say, it's been 10 years. What evidence could you possibly have? And Monica, the other one, goes, here's the dress, here's the stain, right? What does Monica Rial say? I'm a stain. It doesn't matter. She doesn't have anything, so they're going to have to go. But at least she reported it. At least she did it. When you go and just bring it up in public years later without any sort of consideration for the person you're accusing or the fact that you could be wrong or any number of things, you shouldn't be afforded those protections. That's why you're getting sued, why you should be sued, why you should lose. If Monica was truly a victim of Vic, everybody, myself included, this entire chat, I'm guessing, would have begged for her to please go to the police and report it immediately. Go to HR and report it immediately. According to the events as we know them, she didn't even report it to HR initially in 2019. According to the discovery that we have, and this could be cleared up very easily, except no one has decided to provide this for some reason. Vic was never questioned about this interaction with Monica. And Monica only brought it up to Tammy Denbo after Vic had already been fired. Why? Because she was getting her ass kicked on Twitter. Monica's big ass was getting kicked all over the platform. Just jiggle kicks left and right, rolling around like a bunch of gumdrops. And suddenly she needed more ammo. So she tells her story on Twitter. Then she tells the story to Tammy Denbo. And it doesn't make any sense that she didn't tell it during the initial investigation. Why would she lie? I don't know, because everybody on Twitter was like, you're a lying sack of trash. You're lying about a man. No. This is what happened. Really?
And for instance, why you've stayed quiet. It's that feeling of, well, what should I have spoke up sooner, right?
Yes.
And the guilt part of that is something that abusers depend on so that the people don't come forward.
No.
You are not guilty of a single account.
No. You know what abusers aren't doing? Let me put this out there. Ron knows this. This is the worst part. Ron was and maintains being an abusive person. Okay? Ron is not counting on guilt. Ron is not counting on guilt to keep people. Well, the guilt will prevent them from saying I sexually assaulted them. No, it's not guilt. It's fear. And it's also some level of shame, because often victims blame themselves, whether incorrect or, more disturbingly, whether correct. They often blame themselves, but it's not this idea of guilt. Guilt isn't the right word. Oh, well, if I would have come forward sooner, less people would have been hurt, so therefore I'll never come forward. No, stop it. And abusers in the moment aren't relying on these things to do their abuse. They're abusers. They abuse people. It's not like some long, devious game. Like, an abuser isn't sitting there. Ron, when you beat your wife, were you going, haha, yes, she will be ashamed to say that when I hit her with the remote, it switched to the unscrambled Playboy channel. Now I'll hit her with a remote. No, you just hit her. You just hit her. You didn't think about like some future consequence. You didn't calculate out the fact that you were going to hit her and she would or wouldn't tell based on X, Y, and Z. You just fucking hit her because you're just fucking abusive. That's it. Abusers who go after people, who sexually assault them, who molest them or whatever, they let me give you the dangerous red pill. Many abusers have no intention internally of harming the abused person. It's not their goal. They don't wake up and go, I'm going to abuse X today. That's not how people function most of the time. What they do is they get into a situation where, and this is not an excuse, don't get me wrong, they get into a situation where they then allow a stressor to tip them over the edge of what they would otherwise do and into abuse. So this goes to parents who hit their kids. Most parents do not wake up and say, I'm going to hit my kid today. That little son of a bitch, I'm going to hit him. Most parents wake up, especially, I would wager most abusive parents wake up and go, I really don't want to hit my kid today. I'm going to try not to do that. I'm going to try not to do this. And then something happens. The rent check bounces. They get fired from their job or whatever. And then they go hit their kid. And then it becomes like a habit, right? That's how abuse works. It becomes habitual when the consequences go away. It's not like a plan. People don't plan to do this stuff. They don't plan to hurt people. Even people who sexually assault someone usually, at least at the start, put themselves in a situation where a then weakness allows them to transgress into something they never intended. That's how violence and assault and sexual assault, that's how it tends to work. It's usually not like a little evil mastermind going, I can get them. That's not how people operate. God damn it.
Count of another person's actions. So your abuser, you could call them out right now. Who's to say you can't?
Well, the point is it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to change what happened.
Sure, but
it's not going to change.
Also, Cress may not be able to in any way substantiate that encounter. This isn't a criticism of Cress. It's a problem with evidence years later. And if Cress comes out and says, this person abused me in 1993 in this place. And what if that person says, wasn't there in 93. I was in Edmonton or whatever. I was in a different place and I can prove it. Now, Cress might just have the date wrong. Cress might have the location wrong, especially if Cress was a child at the time. And that sucks. It really does. But coming out and accusing them now, here's the scarier thing. What if, it's going to sound awful, and I don't mean it to, but it just is. What if the abuse wasn't what Cress remembers? Maybe it was this is the really scary thing. Maybe it was someone else, right? And I'm sure Cress knows this. What if my brain put someone else's face on that abuse? What if I don't recognize him because I was 5 or whatever? Now, I don't know about Cress's situation, but that's a concern of people who are accusing someone 20 and 30 years ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago, is that our brains can replace faces. We can decide we were with someone else. We can decide someone else hurt us. We can do that. Don't want to. It's not conscious. But this is why there are statutes of limitations and why the idea of unlimited statute of limitations in assault cases is a terrible one.
Change the fact that it had possibly gone on for many years. But my point here is that Monica had the chance to, and right. she chose to not do that. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I didn't choose to speak up because I was fearful. I did not want anything to do with this person anymore. Right. I wanted to put that situation behind me. Now, I don't know what Monica's mindset was back then. I don't know what it is now. Like, I'd love to have a conversation.
I'll tell you what it was back then. This is the most likely, like, based on all of the evidence that we have at our hands, the most likely thing is that Monica and Vic were friends. And Monica and Vic thought they might be more than friends. They had a little makey-outy session, and then they decided, nah, not gonna be friends. Not gonna be more than friends. Not gonna make a big deal out of it. Not gonna disrupt our respective relationships. We're just gonna laugh this off. Because maybe we had a couple beers or something. That is the most likely scenario. Occam's razor says that is the most likely to be true. Because of course it is. Of course it is. Why else are you not just tolerant of someone, you are friends with them for a decade afterwards? Why do you tell their fiance, who you profess to be your friend, that you get on the phone, tell them, you don't tell them what happened. And then not only do you not tell them then, you don't tell them later. You don't do anything. You don't report it to HR. You don't do anything at all. You never act scared, never once. You never act apprehensive. You run up, you give hugs, you give kisses, you do all of the things you did before and after. Occam's razor says there was some sort of consensual endeavor. It fizzled out. And that's how adults operate. And that's okay. They didn't want to bone their own relationships. I would put so much money on that outcome if there were any way to find out.
with her about it eventually. But the fact of the matter is, it's like she made a decision one way or the other to not talk about it for whatever reasons it was justified, because they're 100% justified no matter what reason it was. But the fact of the matter is, it's that it wasn't, for me, it wasn't out of fear. It was because I don't want anything to do with the situation anymore. I'm basically cutting.
Because it's, to back Chris up, it's not out of fear. It's not like, some people are in a situation where they fear reporting someone because they're stuck with them, right? Like a spouse who's got kids. Everybody else thinks that their significant other is great, but they beat them behind closed doors and they threaten to take the kids and they have more resources or whatever. Sure, that Hollywood scenario plays out on occasion. That's the fear that some victims have. Kid victims sometimes like, oh man, I can't get away because it's my stepdad or my stepmom, or I can't get away from this person because kids don't have agency or power or resources to get away. That's the kind of fear that can happen to them. But for adults, it's a lot of times, yeah, you know what? I don't need to deal with this person anymore. It's not fear, because most adults have enough agency to not be with another person unless there's some sort of intimate relationship going on.
Cutting my losses, saying, that's it, I'm gone. And then I'm willfully carrying the burden of guilt that because I didn't speak up, if they went on to abuse other people, then that was something I could have prevented. That's something I have to live with, and I choose to live with that. And like, it doesn't matter how many people tell me that it's not my responsibility. It's something that I still take ownership of, because that's something that helps me work through it, and that's something that helps me get past it. And like, I'm really hoping that there might be a situation here, and like, I understand that you believe the situation, and I don't think that you're lying. I think that you believe in what you're saying.
No, I think 100%. He's lying.
But there is a possibility here, like Ken had been saying, there is a possibility that the situation that you have been told was not 100% truthful.
Okay.
And I think Ken's back.
No, sorry about that. I've been back for a little bit. I had a small thing. There's a little bit of bad weather in the area. My spouse let me know that. So sorry for that.
No worries.
So I did hear a good bit of your reply to that, Ron.
But in that situation, say the same thing starts happening, right? Say you're an abuser, all of a sudden all these people come out that says this person who abused you did X, Y, and Z. And there's multiple people that come out, right? That say your abuser did this to them. You know your abuser did something to you.
No. But what they're accusing them of doesn't look, smell, or sound like what they did to you. First of all, let's be clear. Monica knows how this played out. Monica is lying. I know it's hard to get through those teeth, but Monica is lying through her teeth about what happened, and you would be hard pressed to convince me otherwise. But that being said, nothing in Monica's story sounds like anything in anyone else's story. Except for one person, two people, the Yost twins, directly connected to Monica. That's the closest. But all these people coming forward, none of those stories sounded like Monica's story. And by the way, they don't sound at all believable. Even if we take Monica's story as true, you have to recognize the intimacy of the relationship and the friendship as leading to something more, or at least the perception of something more by one of the parties. Oftentimes people will misread a situation and overstep. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine. That's a thing that happens. two people, their office place friends or whatever. They're making some jokes, and then suddenly one kisses the other, and then they're like, "Whoa, not okay." Or they say it is okay, and then they decide later that it's not okay. Whatever. That's something. That is not hugged me at a convention and made me feel uncomfortable. That's bullshit. And unlike this thing at all, this is a stranger. This is a intimate, not in the sexual way, but an intimate friendship relationship. These are different things. Your grocer is not the same as your best friend of the opposite gender. You're on a different level of relationship and companionship with the person, and it leads to different interactions. So these aren't even comparable. It's like, well, blah, blah, blah. Now, if all of her friends who are similarly acquainted to Vic said the same thing that she had, maybe. But we know that didn't happen. That hasn't come out. That hasn't come out in any way.
Other people come forward, say tomorrow, and say your abuser did this. And then imagine a lot of people calling them a liar. And the abuse that, say, your abuser did to you was exactly the way it happened to them. And you see, and there's
big distinction, Ron. It wasn't exactly the same. No one else has this story.
Your close friends, and say people are calling them liars and accusing them. How would you feel in that situation, thinking that maybe right now you have the idea that maybe it was just you, but what if you learned that your abuser didn't stop at you and it was a bunch of people, and then they were calling liars? Now you are in a dilemma of, do I speak up knowing that people are going to ask me, why didn't I speak up sooner? Or do you stay?
Eagle Lone is lying about me. I'm not drinking a beer. This is a late one, Ale 8-1. This is a ginger ale, and it's terrific. And I thought you could only buy it in Kentucky, but I found out a store near me sells them in individual bottles, and it's one of the best ginger ales that I found.
Stay silent. What would you do in that situation?
Honestly, it's because I didn't take the actions needed. I don't have any evidence. I can't back up my statements. So me coming forward would be empty. It would be hollow. It would be doing more damage. It would honestly be throwing more fuel on the fire. Potentially, people could believe me,
right?
But that would be irresponsible,
right? But that's totally up for you to decide. But
yeah.
Say you did say, you know what, I'm going to say this because I believe it. Would you be wrong to say that something happened to you?
Well, I think part of the issues that a lot of people have is, let's for a second, I will assume at face value everything, against Vic is true.
Yeah,
right?
We can put hypothetical in.
So for this moment, I'll do that. Where I think a lot of people take the problem with this is the way things allegedly happened versus the way they have been characterized by yourself and others involved in this. I don't want to say movement against him, but the people who have spoken out against him, what the statements are versus what has been said about him are night and day. That doesn't mean his actions weren't wrong, but when we're seeing the types of incidents equated to pedophilia, to rape, that's a problem. I know Crumb's dealt with, sexual assault. I've had my own, run-ins with that when I was younger.
Yep.
And
I think everybody has, including myself.
Not to play the I'm offended.
Real quick, for those of you curious about why Ron keeps shoving his finger in his eye, he's got a contact that drifts around, and so he's just reorganizing it. It's not a weird thing that he's doing. It just looks weird on camera.
But that's a lot of offense to people who've dealt with that.
Yeah.
When you're seeing, someone who is, say sexually abused, they go, wait, they're saying a hug is just as bad as being raped?
Right.
It comes off very
right. Yeah, Ron, right.
Blunt.
But as a person who experienced sexual assault, or any level of abuse, how do you feel? Now, it might not be that to some, but wouldn't it be somewhat level of fair to assume that somebody else might be able to interpret a hug that's not requested as inappropriate? Maybe.
No! 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 We have to stop this. No! No! It's not inappropriate to the point of any action. All it is mildly unwelcome for 99.999% of people. Now, if you have that condition where if someone touches you, your bones can break and you're like in a wheelchair because you can't stand up because your femurs will snap if you had to bear the weight of your own emaciated body. Yeah, don't go hugging that person and throwing their electric wheelchair off a cliff or whatever. Don't do that. But the overwhelming majority, the worst possible outcome for a hug is, well, hey, I'm not a big fan of hugs. That's it. That's literally it. Get the fuck over the hug. It's just someone touched you and you didn't like. Now, did they reach down and shove their finger in your anus? That's not a hug at that point, pal. That's a different thing. But just this is never going to ever hurt you. Ever. You cannot like it. Like, I don't, let me think of something. I don't like, oh, here, I got a great one. I don't like sweatpants. You know why? Because I have a heat allergy. So if I put on sweatpants, or if someone, like if I was unconscious, someone's like, oh, this guy's going to get cold, and they put sweatpants on me, I'd be uncomfortable. I really would. Shockingly, I'd get over it. Would live through the day. That would be great. You know what? If someone put olives on my Subway sandwich, I hate olives. I hate black and green olives. Particularly black olives, because my name is Derek Chauvin. No, I'm just kidding. That's just a joke. But I do hate all olives. If you put olives on my Subway sandwich, I will be offended by the taste. I will dislike the bite of sandwich that the olive was on. I'm going to gripe about it and whine about it. But at the end of the day, even if they did it on purpose, the worst thing that happened is I ate an olive. I'm going to live. Stop it with the hugs. You cannot. I repeat, you cannot. You are not allowed. Nick Rekieta laws right now. You are not allowed to interpret a hug as sexual assault. Ever. 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 Because here's the thing. Nah, fam, I'm good. Don't hug me. Now, if someone hugs you after that, that may be some sort of simple assault or simple battery. It's not a sexual assault. Now, if they hug you and start humping you like some sort of Labrador, yeah, that's not just a hug. And that's the problem. He's not accused of doing any of this stuff. Kalinka Pavlova says, does Ron think this way about hugs because he knows that if he doesn't ask Monica's fans first, he's an assaulter? Makes one think. Ron is just an abuser. And I would wager, here's my black pill on Ron, Kalinka. I would wager despite what Ron professes, and this is because Ron is one who professes, not a professor, but a professor. And I also suggest that Ron doesn't have an internal monologue and that he thinks books are work. So Ron, despite saying all these things, I would wager that in an interaction with someone else, and Ken nailed this quietly, and Ron admitted to it quietly, Ron does not empathize with the other person's perspective or feelings in the moment. It's called sociopathy. It's what Ken called out Ron for, not psychopathy. That's different. sociopathy, inability, empathize, and connect with another person's perspective. And it bothers Ron because it's real. Ron does not, in the moment, consider the fact that he's hugging people. Would never cross his mind. Because it shouldn't. Let me be clear about that. It shouldn't for anybody. Like, oh, I'm going to give them a hug. They could stop me at any time. We're going in for the hug. It's that awkward moment. You're like, yeah, okay, good, hug. Okay. But further, Ron is a sociopath. And because he's a sociopath, he is not even able to do so. If we were to turn the script on Ron, I guarantee you Ron assaults people on the regular. He invades their space. He upsets or disrupts their feelings. Now, he's not trying to. I'm not blaming Ron for this. But I would bet thousands of dollars that he does.
Not illegal, but inappropriate. I don't like
inappropriate versus sexual is where, is it inappropriate?
No, don't even go to inappropriate. You don't like something doesn't make it inappropriate for someone to have done. Inappropriateness is some sort of, there's an intent behind it, right? It's an intent to make the other person uncomfortable. Just merely doing something that makes someone uncomfortable, you have just normal, like standard within in mores intentions, that's not inappropriate. Like giving someone a, again, this isn't someone randomly met on the subway, right? It's not like you're running up to a park full of school children and grabbing them up and hugging them. That's a little bit weird. This is someone who is sitting at a table. As a business, people come up and pay between $20 and $200 for various levels of autograph, photo, and interaction. And many of those interactions involve the person getting up, saying, thank you, and then coming around and giving them a hug, or getting up and not just sitting at the table going, hi, thank you for coming. You can buy my picture and I'll sign it. But getting up, oh, I love your outfit. What are you? What are you dressed up as? That was the voice I did back in this show. That was so cool. I love this thing. You put so much effort into it. Thank you for this drawing. And then they give them a hug. This is a level of interaction that is at worst, parasocial. That parasocial relationship that the person who Vic doesn't know feels like they know Vic to the point. And think about this in the rest of your life. Even if you are the type of person who will go to an anime convention and stand in line for an hour to see someone, hug them, buy something from them, that's great. I don't do that. If you do that, that is awesome. And I love that you support the people you like in that way. And I love that you enjoy that interaction. But would you do that for your butcher? The cable guy? Like, would you do that for, the guy who's sitting on the park bench? Would you go wait in line an hour? No, because you don't have a parasocial relationship with that person. You have a parasocial relationship with the voice actor or the comic book artist or the author or the scientist or the teacher, whoever it is. Even though they may not know who you are, you feel that you know them enough to develop something beyond pure stranger. And that is enough to have that physical contact not be weird. It just is. Again, this isn't someone running up and grabbing children. This isn't someone, in this case, if they are children, they stood in line for hours to see this person and likely paid them money. It's not the same thing.
Appropriate if I walk up to a random person and hug them? Maybe, probably. But
Thank
is
you,
it sexual?
Ken.
Probably not.
Yeah, but that's
walk up to a random person, just hug them, and be like, "Hey, you're really cool. I like you." But it doesn't mean it's a sexual hug. It doesn't mean it's got this underlying bad thing to it. And I think that's where I go back to the culture thing too. Is if Vic's culture in hugging and
now see he's focusing on the Italian huggy touchy culture, which is fine, but again, more than just that. There is a parasocial relationship. It's a real thing that happens. And I, being on, not to the level Vic is, but being on the other side of it, I mean, I experience it. And I have to, sometimes it's awkward for me because someone comes up and they're like, hey, Rackets, how's it going, man? And I'm like, hey, who are you? And I don't know how to respond to that because I don't know you. It doesn't mean I think any less of you or anything. I'm not really weirded out by the situation. I want to know who you are. But like it's not the same because you guys see my stupid face every day and I usually don't see yours. So if I meet one of you in person, please never be offended if I'm like, hey, who are you? I don't actually like know you yet. That means I'm happy to get to know you. I'm really happy that we're talking and having an interaction. I'm just as much of an extrovert as I am an introvert. It doesn't bother me to interact with other people in that way. So, but like there's a different sort of dynamic. But I'll also I'll hug you. I'm appreciative that you recognize me, and I would love to get to know you. So Vic is probably the same as me, except a million times more gay pantsed than that, and more energetic. He's better at meeting people than I am, and he's better with faces and names than I am. He's been doing it forever, and it's something that he's genuinely good at.
Closeness like that is normal. It doesn't, it's not sexual. Just like kissing on the cheeks in Europe is not sexual. It's considered a polite gesture.
Right, but we're not Europe, and I'm Irish, and certain things happen there, and different. That's where this whole gets into the weeds. Is it doesn't excuse the lack of understanding of someone else's boundaries, but it doesn't mean.
Yes, it does, because it's a harmless error, and that person has a duty to communicate those boundaries to you. Look, if I buy a piece of land right next to your, how do I word this? If you're just walking and you walk onto my property and there's no fence and there's no posted thing that says, hey, this is private land or whatever, how are you supposed to know? How is that supposed to function? Now, do I get to walk up and shoot you? Not really. Not in any real world today. Because we realize that maybe you invaded the barrier, but maybe you're just like, whoa, I didn't know that. I'll walk off. Oh, let me give you an idea. There's a guy by me who he owns a big farm. Actually, it's a small farm, but it seems big to normal people. If you're not in farming, it seems huge. If you're into farming, it's tiny. But on that farm, there's a big slough, and there's a spot where the slough drains down into a lake. Okay, and at a certain time of year, fish come up to where this drain is, where the drainage from the slough goes into a lake, and the fish go and they hang out there, and you can. If you go on the right day, you could just reach down and grab like a big 10-pound fish. It's gross. They look nasty. You wouldn't want it. It's like a carp or a crappie or something. I think it's like a carp. It's like just a garbage fish or whatever. But you could, in theory, go down and grab it. Now, when this happens, people will pull off on the side of the road, and there's a path, right? Like there's a trail that you can walk on that's owned by the city. But the rest, everything around that trail is owned by the person. And so people will go off the trail and down to go look at these fish. Now, they don't know that that's a private guy's thing because it's like a waterway and it's like developed out. And so you look at it and you go, that's probably, you know, they built this path and bridge over it. It's probably okay, but it's not. And so if that guy drives up and just starts gunning people down mercilessly, he's going to rightly go to prison forever. But you go up and you just say, hey, oh, just so you know, that's private land and you really shouldn't be there. Most people go, oh, shit, I'm sorry. Like I was just looking at this cool little waterway or whatever, or I was just admiring this weird eel-like fish phenomenon that's going on. And most people get up and leave. No problem. That's what Ron is saying. Ron is saying that if these people are walking along a path, they see an interesting thing, it kind of looks like it belongs to the city because of its development, and they go, oh, I'm going to walk down here and get a closer look. And then that guy comes up. You're supposed to know, even though there's no signs posted, no fence or anything, you're supposed to just know that that's not part of the thing you're on, that's someone else's. You're not supposed to know that. And that's why when you're told, that's when you back off. It's incumbent upon you to explain boundaries to the other person. Of course it is, especially when those boundaries can't be visible.
That someone should be crucified. It's just adapt and learn. So
wait a minute, let's go back.
Lack of understanding of someone else's boundaries, but it doesn't mean that someone should be crucified.
You crucified him. You did that.
It's just adapt and learn. So
it was never adapt and learn. This is the infuriatingly disingenuous aspect of Ron Toye. Despite numerous tweets calling Vic a sexual predator, saying that he needs to be removed, saying that Funimation needs to get rid of him, Funimation needs to comment, Vic needs to apologize for all of this. He's like, look, adapt and learn, bro. It's not adapt and learn. That was the crucifixion. You guys did that. It was never adapt and learn for you. Adapt and learn is something you do in private. Say, hey man, just so you know, here's how this works. Again, doing what Ken was doing earlier, taking everything as true, thinking as everything is true. You go, hey, as Monica, hey Vic, you know, this stuff is coming out about you. I see that people are talking about you. And he's like, well, it's not true. And she goes, oh, okay. But I want to talk to you about our encounter back at this thing. And I feel like you crossed a boundary there. And we're still friends. We've always been friends. You know that. But I feel like you crossed a boundary there. And I think maybe that you crossed a boundary there and that you're crossing a boundary here. And you need to take some time and reflect on that and learn on that, because maybe you don't understand that you're crossing boundaries. Now, again, this is if you think the things are all true, and if the thing between Monica and Vic is true, or even her truth, that's how you deal with that. That's what you do. You don't run to your employer and make a bunch of weird reports about a jelly bean, someone else's kiss, and two fans where we're being propositioned in a room. You don't do that, and you don't go out on Twitter and put the person on blast. That's the crucifixion. That's the social ostracism and the social destruction of a person. How a friend would handle that is in private with some guidance towards the person. And then, you know, if, and this is a big if they don't accept any guidance on that, and they don't do anything, then you might come out and say something about them. But imagine the difference that would have happened. Imagine the difference that would have happened if these people came out with their things, Monica approached Vic, like Ron said, this could have all been handled quietly and in private, and actually done it quietly and in private, and said, hey, Vic, I think maybe you crossed some boundaries here, and maybe you're crossing some boundaries you don't realize. Vic would have gone, oh, my God, right? Like, I never meant to do that. And Monica was like, okay, I know you didn't. And that's why I haven't brought it up till now, because maybe you're crossing boundaries. You don't realize they're boundaries, but as a friend, I'm telling you that they're there and we need to change things and blah, blah, blah. And then Monica comes out and says, you know what? People are attacking my friend Vic. And I got to tell you that at the end of the day, Vic is a good, honest, genuine guy who loves his fans and loves people. And maybe he crossed a few boundaries here and there, but I'm going to ask you guys to give him a little grace, give him the benefit of the doubt. And then, you know, as an industry, we're huggy and touchy, right? All the things they said in their lawsuit, we're huggy and touchy as people. We're huggy and touchy in the office. And when we see fans, we're excited. And we're going to work on changing that a little bit. But you got to give us a little bit of grace on that, because some of us are just, you know, we're not perfect. Imagine what would have happened if that had been the outcome. Would any of you know who I am? Would I have had a single complaint about that? Would I have even heard about it? No. No. And the community wouldn't have had problems. There would have been no death threats or violence. You could have done all of this stuff from Ron and Monica and Jamie Markey or whatever could have been handled. Funimation could have handled that internally, even if they decided to terminate Vic, which they could have still done. But why would they, though? Like, in all honesty, if Funimation didn't have the public pressure coming from their own people, why would they terminate Vic? And this is only assuming all of it was true. It could have been handled this way. Based on what Ron is saying, well, you don't crucify someone, but you do, you know, you do correct them. Well, okay, that's how you correct it. All right, just another minute or two, and then I'm going to be done.
That's the part where it's been twisted. I have emphatically said what he did didn't deserve jail, it deserve cops or court. It was something that could justify being terminated, but
that is the destruction. Well, it didn't involve jail. If it doesn't involve jail, the question of should you be terminated for it goes way back in scope. Way back in scope. And of course, and also Ron did say, let's see who walks away a sexual predator or a registered sex offender. Ron absolutely wanted Vic to go to jail. Also, the Kamea-con thing, charges are coming. Charges are coming. You're a liar, Ron. It's embarrassing because there are actual receipts of how you actually reacted, and they go contrary to your lies. But they exist. We can review them pretty easily.
So I will ask this just very briefly. To your knowledge, because Monica's not here to ask, to your knowledge, had Monica or even yourself had a conversation with Vic to say, hey, this is not really acceptable anymore. You might want to stop doing this.
Yes. I know.
Without yes. It wasn't Ron. It wasn't Ron who did it. I wonder what Monica's conversation actually was. That's the question.
Oh, that I've heard that multiple people have had this conversation with.
Did you or Monica? Without yes, I know that I've heard that multiple people have. Holy shit.
Him. And so there have been people that brought this up that he shouldn't be doing this type of behavior.
But you yourself have never either heard of Monica doing it or you yourself doing it.
Well, I have heard of people doing that.
I mean, just answer the question. It's just no, Ron. It's just no.
But did Monica or you do it? That was the question.
Me, I've only I've hung out with this guy probably. Jesus, we were in LA together. We were in New York together.
We were there together. I saw him for 5 minutes.
We've been to a couple of cons where he was there, but hanging out style, New York and Los Angeles. And then I've seen him a couple of times.
Hanging out. I'm pressing X.
And he sent a video for me a long time ago whenever Monica and I got engaged.
I mean, you could have texted him and said, hey, the way you're dealing with this, or you could have called him, left a message, even if you didn't want to talk to him directly.
Yeah.
Hey, the way you're handling this, I think the way you're hugging people or approaching fans is inappropriate. I think you should reconsider that.
I think people did.
Monica ever do that?
I know other people have.
Did Monica?
Yes.
She said that directly to him?
Mm-hmm. And it's part of the lawsuit that she mentions that she emailed him about that years ago, that it was causing him issues, that he needs to stop his behavior, stop being a diva at cons and other stuff.
Okay. Wait.
Behavior, stop being a diva at cons.
Being a diva at cons. Being a diva at cons is an issue. That's not the same thing, Ron.
And other stuff.
Okay.
And that's why he stresses at conventions that, hey, people are going to say this and this, because people had brought it up to him and he just disregarded it.
No, people on the internet said stuff about him. According to Chuck Huber, Chris Sabat called him a pedophile. He knows that people have talked about him. That doesn't mean... If someone calls you a pedophile and you're not a pedophile, like, what can you say to that person? Right? Like, someone on the internet, whoa, person says you're a pedophile. Well, fuck, what am I? I'm not. Well, prove it. Okay. I don't diddle kids. Maybe they do. Check them out. I don't know. Well, what are you supposed to do? Supposed to devote your entire life to proving you're not a pedophile? What, go murder Jerry Sandusky or something? I don't know how you deal with that. But in reality, you don't owe anything to that person. Because if you're just not, then you're just not. But sure, some people had said something about him on the internet. So he had some sort of rumor panel years ago and said, no, this is all fake. This is all false. Some people are stupid. And guess what? Ron, evidence, lots of people are just stupid.
One way or the other. And that's the part that's been frustrating in this whole thing, is that people have been telling him for a long time he needs to chill out and change and adapt, and he ignored it because he thought he didn't have to listen.
He hasn't produced a single shred of evidence that anybody has ever talked to Vic about any of these problems. The closest thing he has said in this conversation is that Monica said, stop being a diva. Being a diva. Think about this, by the way. Being a diva might piss off con staff, might piss off convention runners, and might piss off other voice actors. Who are the main accusers of this? Oh, that's right. On staff, on runners, and voice actors. Now, being a diva might piss those people off, but it doesn't mean that they're sexually assaulting anybody. Those are vastly different things. But again, this is how Ron is. Fans might actually like it, Nick Hex says, and that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Fans like things like showmanship and boisterousness and engagement and stuff that could rub like a volunteer who's had a long day the wrong way. Like a gregarious joke towards someone like, hey, why don't you cheer up over there? That's you looking like a diva to the person who's walking by with like a frown on their face because maybe they just got yelled at by someone over a slushie they spilled or something. Well, that person, though, is going to say, well, that motherfucker, he doesn't know what day I've had. Why should I smile at him? And they'll be pissed off. Doesn't mean you went up and grabbed their penis. Anyway, let's pause here. We've done quite a bit. I've gone a lot longer than I was intending to go to, but we will still have a watch party tonight. Probably just one movie. I'm thinking tonight we're going to do Navy SEALs. If you haven't seen Navy SEALs, it's great. Come watch Navy SEALs. It's a fun movie. We're going to watch it on Twitch just a little bit after this. I just have to get some food. I have barely eaten any food today because, like I said, I haven't had time to sit down. So we will do Navy SEALs on Twitch after this. First, we got super chats. Let's get into those. Fran Madaraki says, here's another poem for Nicky Boy about Ron full of soy. Tears of battered housewives bring him joy. He uses them to lube his puny Peter. In doing so, his guilt is off the meter. In order to prostrate, he lets various funny actors abuse his prostate. So that was disgusting, and I hate every second of reciting that poem, but there you go. Mercenary X says, ooh, Indivisible, the game by the guy that made the fighting game Skullgirls. I backed it on Indiegogo, or was it Kickstarter? Either way, it is a very good game, but I beat it. When are the guest characters going to show? It made the stretch goal for it. I have no idea anything about it at all. Knight of Hopex says, this is factually incorrect, though. Forgiveness requires reconciliation. You actually cannot absolve someone of responsibility they don't accept. That's not true. This is important because until they accept responsibility, you can't resume your relationship with them. Forgiveness is not predicated on you resolving your relationship with them. You can forgive someone and never reconcile your relationship with them, ever. That I will disagree with you until the end of time. And I will say that there are many people who you will never resolve or reconcile a relationship with that you should forgive anyway, for your own benefit. You should say, I forgive this person. I release them of their responsibility, whether they accept it or not. Why is your mental well-being contingent on someone else's acceptance of your forgiveness? What about people who died? You have to sometimes forgive them as well, even though they may never be able to accept that forgiveness. So I'm going to disagree with you on that. But you do you, fam. What you're thinking of is patience or magnanimity. Nope, I'm thinking of forgiveness. Or whatever you'd call having a policy against grudges and bitterness. But forgiveness means something very specific. It is important for our civil society and language to understand and keep that meaning around. No, I think you mean reconciliation as opposed to forgiveness, rather than me meaning something else. Reconciliation is different, but forgiveness is not. Chengiz Khan says, Ron, I'm 90% sure you're watching this. Please get actual help and stop relying on useless books you hack. Or don't and continue cleaning Monica's strap-on while Drexel rams her before your eyes, you pathetic cuck. Drex did say he loves banging feminists. Damn, that's disgusting. Thank you. Siren Jag says, as Von Karma. Okay, Fran Toye, a giant's remote control? Why wasn't I informed that there was such unsick bastard in my courtroom? I do not lose! There you go. Thanks. Thank you. Kitta says, Patreon is now claiming they own everything you do online, even off Patreon. You fundraise on Patreon. Slugbox left recently with receipts. Okay, I'd have to look at those. You know, Patreon doesn't have a work product thing. They may have a license. They may have a license to use the things that you did for their own promotion. And if they do have that license, you likely have the ability to revoke that license by sending them written notice about it. But I can't comment more on it without looking at the thing. Jillian Seed says, Georgia governor invalidated all local mask orders. Chad, attaboy. Attaboy, Georgia governor. Inquisitor Ekim says, Escalation League starting in my game store. Now have an excuse to start my Black Templars army. Ave Imperator. Awesome. Have fun with that. Mr. Leon says, the hacks leaked out tools Twitter uses to censor. Good. Good. They should be on the news. Shadows King 101 says, it's funny how all the true Me Too allegations are for male feminists and woke allies get pucked and oneskins. Okay. Luminaire says, it was as if millions of blue checks cried out and were suddenly silenced. TV Goes Live says, Monica, say that to my face. Al Bundy says, I would, but only if I have half a tank of gas. RM was here says, make funny lemon song Carry On by Kansas. Carry on my wayward lungs. I'll be dead when you are gone. 99 Iron Duke says, Vic is fighting for all men who are victims of unfair feminist Me Too's BS. Support. Vic kicks back on GoFundMe. On GoFundMe. Kid up, my email address is in the description, buddy. Otherwise, one of my mods can maybe do it. JC Gaming says, this is why a settlement is not possible. As long as he believes Vic is in the wrong, it'll never happen. He's full of it. Oh, yeah. He's absolutely full of it. Shadows King 101 says, guys, we need to start a Hop Chalice Fund. Everybody poops. Says ACIM, a course in forgiving. Good description, Nick. Hey, thanks. Nova Zero says, did anybody see Cress hide that laugh? I don't know what point you're talking about, but yes. 10 Gen Ken says, it seems the panelists have a goal with their questions that they creep towards at the detriment of the other panelists' line of questioning. That's anytime you have multiple people doing that. Slash and Burn Theory says, sup, Nick? Got you streaming on one TV and playing Code Vein on the other. Ooh, enjoy that. That's fun. Bad Vibe says, you are showing is minimizing tactics, generalizing and justifying. Ron, I was and could be worse. I'm not better, but I have worked to conceal my manipulative behavior. Xavier Harkonnen says, hey, Nick, hope you're doing well. I am. If it's not any trouble, any chance you can give a shout out to our book on Indiegogo, Peregrine, Wings of the Falcon. Yeah, guys, check out Peregrine, Wings of the Falcon on Indiegogo to see what Xavier Harkonnen is talking about. They've been working on it for quite a while. I know he's mentioned it before, so give it a look. No One Important says, Ron is the super simp. He will twist his own logic and memories for Monica. Monica can lie to his face and go whoops, and he'd forgive her 100% of the time. Angry Hydralisk says, speaking of opinions, it is my opinion that you should fight the urge to get another feminist haircut. Also hit the like button, Nick. Thanks. No One Important says, Ron, money doesn't matter. Also, Ron, pay up. Ron, No One Important says, Ron, hey, Monica, may I kiss you? I unironically think that does happen. It makes me sad. Hurtbox TV says, hey, Nick, was intelligence Ron's dump stat when he rolled his character? Yes. No One Important says, well, yeah, Ron equals sociopath. He laughs like the Joker. Brittany Mars says, I'm surprised they haven't connected the dots. Nick, Vic, it rhymes. Coincidence? I think not. They are somehow the same person. Dun dun dun. Kalinka Pavlova says, I'm so bloody tired of Ron's preaching. Like, Bish, we know you're a liar. You told Ty you'd destroy him in court in that voicemail. Settle already, you chode. Musky Mouse says, watching a movie in Canada Prime. Finally, SMH. Hopefully. Second status says, hey, Rekieta, can you tell us a quick update on how Vic is doing in his case? Love your content, brother. Sure. It's in appeals. The appeals have been fully briefed, and now it's just up to the appeals court on whether or not they will have oral argument, and then from that point, waiting on the appeals to the appeals court to actually issue an opinion. Whether or not they will have oral argument is up to them. There also could be additional briefing, but those briefs are at the leave of the court. Right now, the matter is fully briefed on all sides for all issues. So technically, the Court of Appeals could decide it tomorrow without a hearing or anything. They could just say, nope, this is it. They won't do that. Certainly not tomorrow. But they could, in theory, and they could at any point. It could be months, it could be weeks, it could be days. Well, we're just now waiting. On appeal, if you are appealing a lower court decision, you are necessarily at a disadvantage automatically because it means you lost at the lower court. So now you're having to overcome that loss. Now, with that said, that's an uphill battle, but how are people doing on appeals. It's not like at lower courts where you get kind of this motion practice back and forth. I mean, there are some motions in appeals, but generally speaking, and particularly in this case, there's not really a back and forth going on. It's everybody puts their stuff out, and then the appeals court will hear it and render a decision. So we'll have to see how it goes. Matt Field says, unwelcomed hug with a sphincter tickle is a Biden. And then Bad Vibe says, regardless of any drama, I hope the Star Trek Continues cast can come together to celebrate Grant Imahara. May he be celebrated. All right, guys. That's the show tonight. Have the courts already read the appeals? No idea. No idea. We won't know. They don't tell you when they've read them. They may have, they may not. That's the show tonight. Thank you all for joining me. Please do come join on Twitch. They are loads of fun. In my opinion, I think a lot of other people like them too. Navy SEALs is on the docket tonight. I'm going to start the Twitch stream. Let's get that outro playing. Oh my goodness. I will start the Twitch stream and then I will go grab some food, but I'll be back and we will do the show. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Have a good night. Peace. Peace.
Oh, he drinks a fair bit, but you realize that it just helps get his noggin jogging along. With his glass by his side and his kids asleep tight, we'll hear some lost-plaining tonight. With his microphone muted, we'll laugh at this boomer until he explains it's all part of the plan. Watch his face become redder as he becomes meta, raging at idiots from Twitterland. From the white shores of Maine to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, his lady is fair, and she handles herself with the grace of one who has borne many children. As the wife of a lawman, she makes sure that he has the time and the place to provide for them there. So pour out an art bag, a bow, more of love rug. The spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear lost-plaining tonight. From the white shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law what we have now. Oh, the guests are all plentiful, from Doug T to Drexel. They bring their perspective and spice to the mix. But the reason we're here and the one that we cheer is the one who is showcasing us his career. Get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear lost-plaining tonight. From the white shores of Nam to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the law better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law